Good evening and welcome to the Putnam Valley Board of Education Business Meeting of January 19th. Please stand and join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first order of business, I'd like to resolve to approve the minutes of the work session business meeting of January 5th, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Next, I'd like to make the announcement that the Treasurer's Report for December 2016 is available in the business office. At this time, I would like to make a motion to rearrange our agenda somewhat, both because we are a student-centered board and because we raise student advocates, people to be self-advocates. This is midterm week, and our student reps have midterms tomorrow. So we are going to, I'm going to make a motion for the board that we have the student report go now before any other business of the board.
Please do.
All in favor?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Ladies?
Okay, so our music department has certainly been busy these past couple of weeks, as both the band and chorus groups have had their concerts. Both concerts were successful and the music was amazing. The chorus group even performed the song My Shot from the hit musical Hamilton. The band performed a medley from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
And speaking of musicals, the students recently took a trip to see the Broadway show Kinky Boots. Miss Matans and Miss Tarkington organized the trip for the film club, the LGBT club, temperamental music theory, and the jazz band to all enjoy. I also went, and I thought it was fantastic.
Mr. Baker and his math applications class also went down to the city for a field trip to the New York Stock Exchange. They learned about stocks, bonds, and trading on the floor.
For sports, Robbie Velichko won the 160-pound weight class at the Hendrick Hudson tournament. In addition, the Putnam Valley cheerleading teams did a great job competing at the Croton Harmon High School tournament. And also, students are super excited for the new Tiger mascot that's going to be making its big debut very soon.
That's at an upcoming basketball game. Is it next week sometime? I think it's next week sometime. Great. Okay. So girls, there are some things on the agenda that you might be of interest in. We'll have the minutes available. You can come and see Dr. Wills tomorrow. And good luck on your midterms.
Thank you.
Okie doke. So we're going right into presentations. Dr. Wills, would you like to introduce the first presentation?
Yes, our first presentation is from Con Ed Solutions, and they're going to be talking again, mostly answering questions about the proposal for the EPC contract, and Mr. Bellino will introduce.
Thank you.
Nope.
Nope. I would swear it's on.
Take it out.
Not everything.
I got it to work.
There it is, it's on. All right, again, good evening, folks. I've asked the Con Ed Solutions Group to come back tonight. As you know, I went in with looking for the idea of trying to put together an energy performance contract a few months ago to you folks. We've done the examination of all the work that can get done. The goal was to do this at zero or little cost to the taxpayer. I'm pretty proud to say that we've accomplished going forward that this is right now a standalone project would be at no cost to the taxpayer. Any cost to this here is paid off by the savings that will be generated. So I'll introduce the players here behind me because these are the gentlemen that really worked hard at this, and I'll let them explain to you, and then again if there's any questions for you. So I'd like to turn it over. You have Dylan Allback, Mike Smith, and John Kane from Con Edison Solutions.
Thank you, Pat. So our presentation should be pretty short and sweet tonight. A lot of the information on the slides up front is pretty repetitive from the last presentation that we made here with our 100% comprehensive energy audit report. So what we're here to present is really a summary of what the energy performance contract that'll be voted on later tonight will entail, and then sort of the timing and some of the financial summary data behind it. So let me know if there's any questions throughout, or we can do questions at the end. So here's a summary of the project. Again, very similar to the last arrangement that we presented. Down at the bottom are the updates from the previous presentation. We've added in some door replacements at the elementary school, and we've removed the addendum number 1, the high school carport that we had previously looked at. Otherwise, very much the same as the previous project, with LED lights, the geothermal retrofit at the elementary school, solar PV at all 3 campuses, building management system upgrades, windows. We have basically all of the windows in the 1962 and 1935 sections, with the exception of some block windows that are older and aren't going to be retrofitted in one of the rooms. And then the solar and wind educational program, along with some other small measures that contribute overall to the project payback. Again, project highlights, lighting, this is really a lot of the same information. We feel we have a really good project here. We're giving the district product that will last for a long time. It will reduce maintenance, and it has a great energy payback in terms of the overall performance of the project. This is an updated slide showing the geothermal project and also showing the doors with the little blue boxes, the locations that we're going to be replacing the doors in the elementary school. I've also added some information. This is an overall layout that was part of the design that the district's architect produced during the comprehensive energy audit, and it really shows a full picture of the geothermal well field location relative to the building. You can see it's in the back athletic field on top of the hill, where our manifold is and where the piping is that connects from the building to the new well field. Again, solar, we haven't changed anything as far as the roof-mounted solar panels on the 3 facilities. We've got the bus garage, the high school, and the middle school flat roofs included here. So next steps. This schedule's been updated. We've had, up to this point, a few meetings with the Board of Ed, quite a few meetings with the district, with Pat and Jill and Joe Ferraro here to coordinate the final details going into the contract. On January 12th, we finished negotiations with the district's legal counsel, so we have a contract that's been fully vetted by both Putnam Valley's team and the legal counsel from that perspective. So next steps here. Tonight, January 19th, would be the approval of the energy performance contract. Once that's approved, we'll move forward with the full state education department application. So we'll be working with the district's architect to produce the drawings and the documents that support the application, and we should have a submission in March for that. Typically, that submission is going to take anywhere between 4 to 6 months. Our experience recently has been more on the 6-month time frame. So we're going to be doing everything we can to expedite that. And then another important thing to note here that we'll talk about a little bit is the public vote. The public vote is not a requirement for the project to go forward. It's more of a supportive public vote, part of the SED process to garner additional state aid, in as much as 10% additional to what we've already forecasted. And then the construction period, we're looking at basically September timeframe in 2017, about a year construction, and the majority of the construction that would be taking place in occupied spaces or on school grounds rather than working during the year would be in the summer. So we'll be working night shift to do some of the smaller, less obtrusive measures during the year, and then in the summertime when we're actually drilling the geothermal well field and retrofitting the equipment, that would be during the summer. Let's see, anything else I missed on this slide, Mike? Okay.
The state aid is not actually 10% increase. It's a 10% increase in your total ratio, which would result in an additional 20% in actual state aid. So on the aidable portion of the project, you're going to increase that, and it's we'll talk about it a little bit later, but equivalent to about $600,000 in additional monies that would come from the state to the district, and you're able to apply that, obviously, however you'd like to, over the next 15 years in incremental payments every 6 months.
Right, so this is a fairly busy slide here, but it does contain a lot of the highlights of the project and the financial piece of the contract. So I'll go through it in detail here. If we start at the top, we've forecasted an interest rate of 3.5%. Working with Jill and today's rates, that can be an arduous task. We do feel that that number is fairly conservative, so should the district be able to garner a better rate, at the time financing occurs, when SCD approves the project, that'll only benefit the district. Total implementation costs, these are the costs, Con Edison's direct costs to build the project. Those are our costs, our project management, our subcontractors, and labor. KG&D is the district's architect. They have a 7.5% fee, which is added on top of those costs and shown here. So the total amount paid to Con Edison Solutions, because KG&D is a subcontractor to us, or subconsultant to us, is $6,921,000. Total M&V costs. So M&V costs are measurement and verification. It's a requirement from the State Education Department that we actually verify the energy savings through testing, measurement, and verification that they're being realized for the first 3 years of the project. So these costs are typically rolled into the financing package and financed as part of the total. And then utility incentives. There's $112,000 worth of utility incentives that we are applying for on behalf of the district, and these monies are going directly back to the district to pay for the project. Total guaranteed annual cost savings. So the total savings, annual savings, are $384,912. This is in effect about 53% of the total energy spend for the district. So it's a large amount of energy savings and a large amount of reduction from what you're currently spending. And then construction period interest is factored into the overall financing package. So we've got a couple of thresholds that we needed to meet to make this project successful, and are demonstrating today that have been met. One of them is the 18-year simple payback for SED. That is their requirement. And then 15-year financing. So we're getting the best rate possible at a 15-year term, again meeting SED's requirement. No cost to the taxpayers. That's something Pat touched on before. I think the last time we were here, we had proposed an addendum with some more solar carport measures that would require some capital input or some cost to the taxpayer. This project requires nothing. So objective met there. Reduced energy consumption. I mentioned 53% is about the total reduction in your energy usage. Reduced greenhouse gases, CO2 emission reduction. We'll have another slide here to show you exactly how much. I think we've presented a few different figures throughout the way with the different scenarios. Again, another goal met here. Improving infrastructure. So upgrade of the building management systems and the lighting throughout the district, reducing the maintenance and the frequency of maintenance that needs to happen with some of these aging components. Another major goal met. Creating a solar footprint, reducing fossil fuel usage with the geothermal system, enhancing the school's curriculum. I know that was something, Joe, you were very keen on including in the project and making sure that we utilize with this project to get the most benefit out of it for the district. With our solar and wind installation and tying that into the school curriculum, we're giving the district an additional tool to work into that curriculum and enhance the children's education. And then reducing future capital needs. So with the window project, it's a large capital project. It's potentially something that won't have to be done as a capital bond project down the road. And then, as Mike mentioned earlier, the public vote, which we anticipate would happen in May 2017, if the vote goes through and is approved, would garner an additional $600,000 in total state aid for the project. So again, improving that number down at the bottom which is, I think, kind of what all this ties into, the $2.3 million of cumulative cash flow. So over an 18-year period, this is the net benefit on top of all the other things that we install under the project. This is a net benefit to the district. So we add another $600,000 with that vote being successful in May. And then project summary. So I mentioned the greenhouse gas emissions reductions, 1,100 metric tons of CO2 emissions, equivalent to 413 cars removed from the road, 727 tons of landfill each year, and 16 acres of forest preserved. And that's it. Thank you.
Dylan, I have a question. I think most people have a good idea or understanding of how, you know, there's money savings and energy savings by changing all the light bulbs. People get that because they go to Home Depot and they have to change their light bulb. Similarly with solar, you know, people putting in solar lights. However, the geothermal, even though this campus has been running on it since this building was put in, and before, the idea of how that works, and then just can explain the diagram a little bit more as to how that's placed and its functionality.
So, Joe, if I understand the question, you're looking to have the geothermal explained.
How it works, and specifically what these dots and these lines and things mean on this diagram, as far as the layout on that field in the elementary school.
Sure. Green button. Sorry. So the areas that are in green on the diagram are the areas that will be affected directly by the geothermal project. These are the occupied areas which will have heat pumps now serving them for both heating and cooling. The majority of the spaces in the 1935 wing, the units actually go in the attic. There's some large mechanical spaces where you have existing energy recovery unit air handlers, and our units will be installed in series with those units so that we're still taking advantage of all the efficiencies that come with an energy recovery unit, and we're building on that now by the heating and cooling source coming from geothermal. In addition, we're leaving the existing hydronic hot water radiation that's on the perimeter of the classrooms in place, so that if there's ever any issues with the geothermal, or there's those design load condition days where it's extremely cold out and we need to take the edge off the building, we can do that with the hydronic radiation. And then the cafeteria, you have two air handlers there currently, which are fairly old, 1962 vintage. We'll be replacing those in full now with heat pumps that do both heating and cooling.
Then if you go to the next slide after that,
Yep.
just the kind of explain this layout a little bit more as far as this dark gray area, these circles, the dots on the right-hand side.
Sure. So this drawing is a little complicated or filled in because it's part of an overall architectural set. Really what we're looking at here is the line that connects the building to the field. These are our new 6-inch condenser water lines that run from the boiler room in the school, where we'll have new pump sets and new piping distribution loops to the field itself. And then the gray box that's connected on the right-hand side is an underground vault. Thanks, Pat. Where everything's manifolded together. So the individual thicker black dots that are in the middle of the field are the individual wells that would be drilled and then connected to make the whole well field system.
Does that, real quick, does that limit the use of that field in the future if we wanted to put turf or something there?
Nope. What we're going to do is establish a rough subgrade a couple inches below. We'll pull up all of the turf and grass from the field that's there now. When we're done, that rough subgrade will be reestablished and we'll put the field back. So it does not prohibit you guys from building anything.
You might get a field upgrade there a little bit in the meantime, no? rake some rocks out of there.
Nice try.
What's that?
If you want to go to the next level, like say turf field,
Yeah.
like what we have down here, or similar to this, that would be, the board would make a decision at that point. Once the wells are done, if not, we'll bring it up back to the grass field.
Well, and not to go crazy here, but would this be a good time to consider that if we were going to ever consider it, based on ripping the field up?
My instinct is to tell you, yes, it would be, in the sense of, once we get this approval, the board's got to vote on it tonight.
Right.
The board votes to accept this, for this resolution, we move forward, and this goes up to the state, but I would at that point probably come back to you and say, we should talk about next steps, if we, as we go forward with this.
Maybe
We're
we
not
could-
looking at this, David, till, I would say, beginning of summer 2018.
Summer 18. But maybe we can look at the cost of just that one piece of
Right.
actually putting reconstituting the field as it exists. If we could eliminate that cost and make more financial sense to do the turf at that time if we do it.
Can I ask about the maintenance of the system then? Does that fall upon the school district then, once this is all installed? Maintenance of the solar panels, et cetera, upgrades perhaps? Who does that fall to?
Yep. We have discussed maintenance with Pat and the team here throughout the project and the different iterations of what was included and what was not. The district actually has a fairly regular maintenance program with outside vendors that come in and do a really good job of maintaining the control systems and the mechanical equipment. So this would be added on to that maintenance program, and we would provide as part of our final completion and closeout a full training program that could involve both the district and its vendors to be able to service the equipment appropriately.
As far as managing the data that comes out, again, the educational component, but also obviously the requirements for you keeping data, what's producing what. The district will have access to that. Students will have access to a portion of that to see how much electricity is generated by the solar panels and how much all that. If you're in that maintenance mode, and I'm assuming we're not having one of our workers here replace a faulty panel, but in your, who's watching for a panel or two going out or a connection going out, and how is that detected? Who's detecting it?
So we will have an energy kiosk that's associated with the solar panels that monitors and trends all that data. So at that point, it would be on the district's radar to be able to manage that data and understand if there's any failures in the system. We do have a 1-year warranty, so in that period of time, we would be monitoring the data and advising the district. In addition to that, the 3-year measurement and verification services, on an annual basis, we come in and take a look at all the data throughout the year and provide a report that says whether or not things are operating correctly or if adjustments need to be made. And typically we'll work with you guys on that on a more frequent basis. Every couple months we'll be checking in to make sure that at the end of the year we don't have a large deviation from what we were forecasting.
Now that kiosk is not, I mean, it might be physical, but there's also the ability to just tap into a website to be able to...
Yeah, it'll be a web-based kiosk, so the physical hardware shall reside on the district's servers and be web accessible. So there'll be credentials required for both the building management system controls and the solar photovoltaics in order to access that information. And just to touch on the maintenance of the solar panels, it's really just a cleaning that needs to happen, wiping down of the panels. Maintenance is fairly minimal on the solar.
Quite frankly, in this area, I mean, it's very little maintenance generally required. If you're in a more of a dusty environment, that's something that typically you'd see having to do some regular maintenance. But with regular rainfall in this type of environment, very few projects ever need any actual maintenance from like a cleaning standpoint. Additionally, although we don't have O&M responsibilities, there are several components in the project which have extended warranties. So while labor for replacement isn't provided, the materials themselves would be provided. What we'll do is we'll extend the manufacturer's warranty and assign them to you, but we also will support that warranty. So if you have an issue with any of the vendors or manufacturers of that equipment and are unable to get that product, you can contact us and we'll certainly support the original manufacturer's warranty. Particularly the LED lights have a 10-year warranty and the panels have an extended warranty. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I believe it's about 7 years. I could get that information for you.
I have a minor question on the interest rate. What interest rate did you assume for your $234,000 in interest we're going to pay?
So we're using a 3.5% interest rate. What we see on the marketplace currently is something below 2.5%.
And that would be fixed for 15 years?
That's correct. Okay. That's correct. So we are anticipating interest rate increases over the next several months, and we made, I think, a very conservative estimate at 3.5%.
And when can we lock that in?
When SED approves, right?
After SED approves the project,
okay.
at that point, you'll submit a bid for financing, working through the finance department in Jill, and you'll submit it to several potential lenders and pick ultimately the best rate. It will be a fixed rate for the time of the loan, period of the loan.
Jill, you agree with these numbers? These numbers are?
Yes.
Okay. Fine.
And this looks like a worthy thing to do as far as
Yes,
savings
the
is
project has substantial savings all around, and the interest rates were figured at a conservative level. They were figured differently early on, and we had them change that and go back in and look at them where we think they could be potentially, but hopefully they'll come in lower later.
And just information-wise, again, the areas that will not be geothermal, is that because what the reason for that would be?
So we had looked at every area in the elementary school as a potential geothermal candidate, and it really came down to the overall payback of the project and only being able to support as large a project as we currently have in there today.
There are some areas that are currently air-conditioned already with perfectly functioning DX systems, so we eliminated those particular spaces because they're already being served pretty well. And then we looked at the cost for installation. We wanted to choose the areas where it made most sense. Areas in the 1955 wing, actually, because of all the existing infrastructure, the ductwork, the piping, the structure of the rooms themselves and the support beams, there was a lot of extra work that would be required, and obviously our costs started to go up. So we kind of right-sized the project and cherry-picked the spaces that were most appropriate from a financial perspective. And one other thing, we just wanted to remind you that in this instance, we are able to add air conditioning to the cafeteria of the elementary school as part of this project as well.
And I think just to add to that, the resulting geothermal project makes a lot of sense because it ties really well into the window project that we're doing. All the windows that are being replaced have a geothermal component so that we're not having to put back in the front of the building, window air conditioners again.
Did you estimate, I don't know if the public knows, that we don't use any oil here on this campus, zero for the high school and middle school. And how many gallons of oil do we use at the elementary school right now, and what kind of reduction in oil are we going to achieve?
It's a fairly significant, Pat just mentioned 2/3 reduction,
I
but
believe we're going to reduce it by about 2/3. David, I'll give you the numbers. I'll pull them out, but I believe we looked at it, it comes down to about 2/3 reduction in oil usage.
right, so we're covering a significant portion of the building now with geothermal, which, similar to the high school, middle school, will run almost 100% on electricity.
And our electricity use based on the pumps will increase a little bit, but the oil will offset that and a ton more, right?
Yeah, the electricity used from the pumps and the compressors will offset the reduction in the oil usage a little bit, and that's all been factored in. Sure. We can follow up with the exact oil numbers, reduced, all that's in the report.
It was, very exciting for us, especially when oil was over $4 a gallon 5 years ago, or whatever that time frame was, to realize that savings. So if oil spikes again, which it is likely to do, then the savings will be fantastic for us.
Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
Geothermal, or I should really more correctly say ground source heat pumps, because geothermal, technically speaking, actually taps into heat from geologic effects, sort of like a geyser type thing. This is a ground source heat pump. The beauty of these systems, or the problem I should say, is that they're kind of high from a first cost perspective. But once installed, the operational costs are very minimal. So it's a great insurance towards hedging against future increases in energy costs. Absolutely.
Right, and the system was really designed almost as an extension of the existing systems here at the high school and middle school. So we're utilizing like manufacturers, like freeze protection.
So we're not learning a
It'll
whole
be-
new system over
Right, it'll
there.
be very easy to maintain, similar to the high school, middle school, except for maybe the fact that we'll have better access to the units for maintenance, which is a little bit of a problem in some of the spaces in the middle school.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next presentation will be from our internal auditor. I believe, correct?
Good evening. I'm Dave Moran from McCune Partners. We're your internal auditor, and as the law requires, we've just completed a risk assessment update for this fiscal year, and coming out of that is our recommended internal audit plan. And, all right, not that way. There we go. All right. The risk assessment update process you see before you, it does basically, if I'm to summarize that, what we're doing is we're looking to see what external factors, internal factors, and changes may have changed, hopefully not increased the business risks and whatnot the district is faced with, but more importantly, we like to see the risks actually declining whenever it's possible. So in order to do that, we speak to the appropriate district staff, we evaluate the information technology as it operates today, we review the documentation, any new board policies, external audit reports, and what have you, and determine if there were any significant changes to the control environment. We do confirm our understanding of the key internal control processes, we update our proprietary risk assessment matrix, and then we summarize it in a risk assessment evaluation. In a report, we then review that with the audit committee, and then present, the audit committee accepts it, and we present it to members of the board. The one thing that isn't up there, of course, is one of the reasons we're doing all this is to try to pick out what area needs to have an audit done in the spring, okay? And that's what we'll get to. If I get the buttons right, there we go. The definition of risk I've already talked about a little bit. It's the internal, external factors that threaten the achievement of the district's mission. The point that we want to make here is there is some inherent risk in certain high-risk areas or higher risk areas, and that's what we call materiality and criticality to the overall district operations. That's something you really can't do anything about. What we're looking at is the former up there, the and insufficient control with policies and procedures that can be improved upon. When we do the assessment, we basically break it into these functional areas that you see up on the screen. And what I've done is I've shown you the risk levels from the previous fiscal year and then the most current fiscal year. The good news there is you do not see anything that says high risk. And that's a credit to the district and its staff, systems, and what have you. Within the rankings that you see there that say medium, you'll notice on the far right the change says declined. In virtually all of the areas we looked at, we look at a point assessment that we assign to the various categories of high, medium, and low, and there are ranges within them. In all instances here, virtually every one of the areas that have been rated medium actually did decline, though, in the point, so that is all very favorable. What's that the result of? It's the result of a stable workforce. It's a result of a continuous tone at the top that says we are control-oriented and what have you.
So this is like golf. Declined is good.
Declined is good, yes. Yeah, I know, and you're absolutely right, thank you.
Thank you.
I've thought about that. If I'd said increased, what would the reaction have been, right? But I guess wrong. All right. Coming out of this and looking very hard at the various areas and where the recommendation should be made, we came up with, guess what? Information technology should not be a surprise. It's the most permeating thing out there. It supports all the systems and all the operations. And it's one area that we have not looked at before. So the audit committee thought that probably a good time to do it. This would be a review of what we call the general computer controls, but it also gets into looking at the service providers that you have, such as the BOCES, okay, that back up your systems and things of this nature to make certain that they have the proper controls in place so the district would not find itself in a situation where it couldn't run. And that's the area that was agreed upon. And for that, I'll throw it open for any questions.
I actually have a question for Pat. That future audit is different than the state audit we're talking about, which would be the same thing?
Dave's the internal and the state is doing theirs.
Yeah, one of the differences would be they will complement each other because what the state initially asked for was survey basis. What we'll be doing is we'll be testing. In other words, we believe you, but we also want to see if that's the case. Okay.
Any other questions?
It's tough to follow geothermal, you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Next, we have what I hope will be something unique and interesting to our public, to our parents, and to our community. Last year when and this year actually, when we looked at our program at the middle school for language other than English, our world language program, we noted that we had very large numbers in our Spanish classes. And in fact, we would be looking to increase the number of language teachers because of these large numbers in the classes. So in looking at that, I saw this, and our administrative team, we saw this as an opportunity to look at our language program, and we did also bring in our high school teachers to see what else we could do at our middle school to increase opportunities for students, to advantage them further, which is what we've been trying to do with our educational program. And doing some research on what we could offer that would give another opportunity to students, we looked at the distance learning program that BOCES provides from Orange Ulster BOCES, that a number of districts, I think there are 13 districts in the region that use this program now, including Brewster in our own county. And it's an opportunity for our students to start their regular language progression with Mandarin Chinese at the 7th grade. So this, we felt, was something that a number of parents might be interested in for their children as a way to start something, again, that increases our connection with global learning, with the opportunities that are out there for our young people as, when they graduate from high school and from college. This opens up many, many doors to them to have this language. So we started researching, and we had Diane Lang come from Orange Ulster to talk about the program. And recently, we sent out a survey to our 6th grade parents. And the survey's been out for actually about a month or so. And the results were striking. 43 parents are interested in the program. And we were looking at hoping maybe one section, which would alleviate the crowding in the Spanish program and would provide this other opportunity. It looks like it might be as many as 2 sections. We don't know that because our next step will be to have more opportunity for parents to actually have a conversation, those parents who are interested, to have the conversation with the teachers from the program. So tonight, I would like to introduce to you Diane Lang and the teachers from the Orange Ulster BOCES to talk about the program so that the board has an opportunity to hear what we would like to be able to offer at our middle school. And this course would take the students right through middle school and high school. They would be doing their regular first checkpoint program with this. If you recall, we brought French back to the district about 3 years ago, and it's been very successful at the high school. We start French 1 at the high school. And this is, though, something that would definitely contribute to our students' advantage moving forward.
No doubt.
It'll take us just a minute to set up some sharing pieces.
When I saw the agenda, I started checking. When I saw the agenda. I sent this to you. Yeah. Thank you. So if
So the folder you have, the blue folder, is our overview folder. It has some historical pieces about our program, as well as our current year program guide. And in the back, there's a pocket with some flyers that we've used to encourage students to participate in different activities. Good evening. My name is Diane Lang, and I am the Director of Instructional Support at Orange Ulster BOCES. With me are part of my team. I have Mrs. Chen He, a Mandarin Chinese teacher with our program. She's been with us for 8 years. And to her side, I have Mrs. Hanyan Ding, and she's been with our program for 5 years, and I've been with the program for 6. So we have a very stable staff. As your superintendent shared with you, staffing is often a challenge for Chinese programs. But we have a 5-teacher team, and we've been together for a long time. So we have a program to share with you, and then we brought student work and textbooks and other artifacts to share with you, and then we would welcome your questions and would love to dialogue with you about the program. So Mandarin Chinese lives in a CoSer, which, if you're familiar with how BOCES works, those are cooperative services. So those are shared programs that 2 or more districts join together to offer something that would be really difficult for one district to offer by itself. So the CoSer for Mandarin Chinese is e-learning, and there are many other pieces that you would get if you joined Mandarin Chinese, because you would join e-learning, and then within e-learning there are options. So the thing we're talking about the most this evening is Mandarin Chinese, which is a live distance learning program. But there are other things in that CoSer you could also access in your first year or as time went on. So we also have the potential to offer Latin in an online format. We've offered other languages such as Japanese, and the potential to expand that to Arabic and some other languages not typically taught in our region. Every year we host interactive e-field trips. We have a huge catalog. Some recent work we did was with the University of Texas at Austin. We've done dinosaur digs in first grade. So even though foreign language is usually a secondary program, in the e-learning CoSer you might have some benefits to the elementary school with live e-field trips if you wanted to go in that direction. We've done cultural exchanges, and we have a really broad catalog of options within the e-learning CoSer. So you may be sitting at your seat saying, why Mandarin Chinese? We feel Mandarin Chinese is a great program for students here in the Hudson Valley because China is a major world power. Our students need to know about China linguistically, culturally, politically. We want our students to be citizens of the world, and this is a great opportunity for students to learn about a culture that may be very different than their home culture or the culture here in your district. We believe learning an Asian language helps students develop 21st century skills. There's a lot of problem solving, a lot of joy, and they will master many strong thinking skills by studying Chinese. We believe studying Chinese offers students an East-West lens so that they have cultural competence and understanding that ranges around the globe. And we feel it gives them a flexible international view. Some instructional notes about the program. New York State requires 2 major features to all foreign language or world language programs. One is focused on communication, so reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And the other significant piece to comply with New York State regulations is to focus on culture. And in the context of world languages, world culture is seen as history, geography, sociology, anthropology, and social linguistics. And our program has been designed very intentionally to address both. Many parents who look into this ask us, are you going to use traditional characters or simplified characters? We are using simplified characters, and that's what's used publicly in China for commerce. We've had a few students that were very excited about more traditional work, and we can do something with them individually. But our program is really geared for students to explore at the university level, or if they want to go into careers, and so simplified would be what they needed. We focus on experience, interaction, not the textbook. We do have textbooks, and we brought them to share with you tonight, and workbooks, but we really think that you learn to use a language by using it. So our interactions and our teaching focuses on that. And we have a full Regents sequence, and we also have electives within the program. This is our staffing, so Hanyin Ding and Chen He are here, but back at home in Orange County tonight are Judy English, Dr. Jing Gao, and Ping Maroney. We have a substitute teacher, so even if someone's absent, instruction goes on. That's Mr. Edward Maroney, who is actually not related to Ping Maroney, but is a speaker of Chinese. We have an instructional coach for Lot, Dr. Diane Gomez from Manhattanville College that has been working with us for 6 years. We have a clerical support member who's dedicated to the program, so if you have a problem during the day and the teachers are broadcasting, there's somebody to take your message and make sure that whatever you need gets answered, whether you're a district staff member or a parent. And I'm the administrator of the program. So our Chinese distance learning model is unique because it's live video conferencing, and we brought pictures to show you. What that means is that at our center in Goshen, we have 5 broadcast classrooms that have high quality television broadcast quality monitors, and on a district side, we're broadcasting to you. Many of our districts have the same quality monitors on their side. Some are using smart boards and other devices, but it creates a situation where our teacher is live at the broadcast teaching a lesson. On your side, there's a TA in the room with the class to help with distributing materials and for safety. The teacher can see the students can see the teacher, and they can hear each other in a live conversation. So we have some pictures, and I'm going to invite Mrs. He and Mrs. Ding to help me talk to you about what you're seeing in the pictures. So, sure. Do you want to come up to the mic?
Yeah. So you can tell one of our teachers, Dr. Jing Gao, she is teaching Chinese. When you look at the screen on the TV, that's another side of a school district. So it's such a updated technology, so we can interact with the student very well. So we have 2 remote controls. So the one of them we use the most, we can zoom in the image, we can zoom out. So for instance, if a student is texting somebody, we can put him right on the middle of a screen. We say, hey, George, what's the text message? Would you read it loud to me? So we can put him right on the screen. That's how great this technology is. So, and also look at the camera. We call the MO camera. We can physically show the student how to write the Chinese characters from the strokes by strokes. Because of the camera Dr. Jingao used, that's one of the perfect examples. So it shows on the screen from other side. So students, they can clearly see from screen what's on the screen. So the video conference worked out so well for so many years. We never had a problem. So that's for
jump in as I stand over Chen's shoulder. I realize that the picture, though quite large, might look quite small. And something that's happening on the screen that might not be evident to you if you haven't been in a distance learning suite is that screen is actually chopped into 4 pictures. So you see the large picture on the left where you can see the teacher writing is one segment of the screen, but there are actually 3 small rectangles going down the right side of the screen. So in the top, she's viewing, she can see the whole class. In the bottom, it looks like she has zoomed in on herself, so you can see her a little bit. So what's interesting about this as a methodology for teaching a language that might be very foreign to some of the students taking it is that we can zoom in on the handwriting and make it really large, and students can view the strokes as they're being done. But we can also zoom the camera into our mouth and our embouchure, so she can do a very tight close-up of her face, her lips, her throat, so students can see how she's producing sounds and words in Chinese, which in a regular classroom might actually be hard. So there's some actual real strong pedagogical advantages in this particular language situation to using this high tech where we can really make certain pieces of language learning huge and large and present it in a new way. So that's one of our rooms. We'll show you some more.
That's right. Dr. Lam was mentioning the screen. Actually, it was showing on the image, that's the regular TV, but most of the school districts, they use a smart board. So smart board is even bigger, so it will work even better. So Dr. Lam was right. So we can actually zoom in ourselves as well. If, for instance, I want to say I want the teaching student to pronounce this sound. I can zoom in myself, put myself right on the screen, so the student can look at my facial expression very well, so they can learn from me as well.
How many remote classes are you teaching at one time?
At one time?
Is that 3? I mean, it looked like a maximum of 3
Just
fit
one
the screen.
One classroom?
So we have 5 teachers teaching all the time. So
But I just meant the technology. It looked like
to the
there was 3.
technology, I could split into 3. We don't. The most we split at one time would be 2, and we try to avoid that. So sometimes, because we honor the district spell schedule, there are slight overlaps. So what we will do is try to have your slight overlap with a like age, which actually has, again, a pedagogical advantage. And we actually wrote a paper about video conferencing conversations in Orange County, where kids, say in Warwick, became friends with kids in Goshen, kids they would never have met otherwise, but they had a 10-minute overlap, so the teacher used that for conversation, authentic conversation. Can you communicate in Chinese with somebody you've never met? So 7th grade came on. In Warwick, they had most of their lesson, last 10 minutes, it was overlap with another section. They had conversation time, then Warwick closes down, then the other class keeps going. So this year we have very few overlaps because it is a little confusing, but when we do it, we're able to use it for the betterment of the students.
So then it's typically one teacher, one class.
Most typically. That's what we strive for.
I'm going by picture, it looked like they were two classes happening at
No,
the same
in that
time.
particular, the purpose of the picture was to show you that we can take parts of what we want the students to focus on and put it all up at the same time.
Okay.
But actually, she was working with one class. This is Dr. Gao again, doing conversation time with the students. And again, I apologize, when we looked at this on our screen, it seemed like a clearer picture. But what this is a picture of is Dr. Gao is speaking to the young woman at the picture on the right that's sort of forward. Her desk is a little shiny. She's really talking to her. If you look behind that young woman, the other boys and girls are talking in pairs and triads. So we point that out because we think it's important for you to realize that even though it's distance learning, it's very interactive. There's group time, there's one-on-one time, there's whole class time. We really work the whole period to keep it lively and keep it paced appropriately for the grade level.
Could you just talk about class size for a minute? As to what you find, where you max out as far as effectiveness?
So we've experimented with the idea of class size quite a bit. So when I took over the program, the prior director capped it at 14. And if you think back 6 or 7 years ago, that was a very hard number for school districts. So I wanted people to stay in Chinese, so I took a leap and said, whatever your average number is in district, that's okay, whatever you're running. And that actually proved to be a little difficult. So there were some districts that were up to 29 and 30, 32, and that is really difficult. We did it, but it wasn't optimal. I'll look over my shoulder and ask my team. My guess on optimal would be about 12.
The beginning was set up at 12 to 14.
12 to 14. Most of our sections are bigger than that. I would say most of our sections are running 16, 17. Of course, I was a classroom teacher. I would always pick a lower number. But we can manage. It really becomes an issue of the space and if every student can be seen. So sometimes rooms that you might not like for traditional instruction really work for us. So sometimes a longer room rather than a wider room is better. So, you know, especially when you're starting, I would say start a little smaller. Once your students are used to it, if they're a little more mature, you can increase a little bit on the class size. But we don't have a rule or a policy. We would give you guidance. And here's Dr. Gao again, working on writing. Here are some of our milestones and accomplishments. I won't read them all, but I'll point out some really key pieces. We have written our own checkpoint A, B, and C. Most districts only offer checkpoint A and B. If you're not familiar with that, checkpoint A is the exam that 8th graders take to get credit for 7th and 8th grade language study on their high school transcript. Checkpoint B is usually after 2 years of high school study, usually in 10th grade. It's like if you went to high school in New York State, it's in lieu of the Regents for foreign language. And checkpoint C is something unusual. Very few districts, we're actually the only district in Orange County that gives a checkpoint C in any language. And checkpoint C is on the books in New York State, and it's the highest level of language accomplishment. And you have the option to do it either as an exam or portfolio. So we do ours as a portfolio, and we have pictures of that process. We're really proud of it. We have 12th graders decide what their focus is going to be, the arts, business, theater, and they do a project all in Chinese about their heart's desire. And it comes before a panel, and it gets reviewed and scored. So we're really proud of that. That's one of our big accomplishments, to write all those exams and get them reviewed. We're also really excited. We've presented at conferences around the country. We'll be presenting in Las Vegas in a couple weeks, and we just heard that we'll be presenting in Texas later in the spring. We did a college forum in spring 2015 where we invited in colleges from around the country to come and talk to kids about how can Chinese help you in college. Last summer, we tried a Taste of Chinese, which was a totally free program we ran for middle schoolers who have not picked a language yet. And they came in for a full week, 15-hour course, live course at our center, and we gave them a taste of Chinese. They learned to read, write, speak a few words. They learned to cook, they did art. And it helped kids get over the hurdle of thinking, oh, it's going to be so different. I don't know if I can do this. It'll be too hard. And that was really a fantastic experience. And we had students from the district we service and some districts that we have never serviced ever before. So it was really exciting to meet so many students and have them studying Chinese. And this year, coming up in a few weeks, it will be our first ever Mandarin Chinese New Year in-person cultural experience. So we will go out in person to every district we work in and meet with every student in our program in person and do a Chinese New Year celebration. We're really excited about that. We think distance learning is awesome, but there's nothing like meeting someone in person. We did some pilots, and it was like bringing rock stars into the building. It was awesome. So we're going to do it for every student this year, and we have also offered to go to every school that has a 6th grade that would like to do this and do a mini Taste of Chinese. So we really work hard. We are really committed to the program, and we'd love to see more students participate. This is a presentation we got invited to present at the University of Pennsylvania in February 2013. This is a picture of Checkpoint C. That is in our conference room. And I'll show you a few more pictures. And it's a little hard to see, but our teachers are in there, and also the teaching assistants from the districts came in for Checkpoint C. This is someone doing a Checkpoint C. So this young woman picked as her topic history and a look at Marco Polo. And she presented artifacts and presented completely in Chinese about her research. This is the panel. So the panel consists of our teachers and a guest. Native speaker of Chinese, and there's a rubric, and all the projects are scored against the rubric. And the panelists also interact with the students, and also it's public, so sometimes superintendents come or parents come, and all the other seniors that are presenting are in the audience. And when we looked at our 2016 graduates, the students that exited our programs had completed 6 years of languages other than English or world language instruction in Chinese. They had all successfully completed checkpoints A, B, and C, and they left with 12 credits in Mandarin Chinese. So left with Chinese 101, 102, 201, and 202. And those credits would be accepted at all SUNYs and as well, many private colleges took those credits as well. Here's some of our trend data about districts participating and the number of courses. We're a little worried about that bump where we had 10 courses in 14-15. We had piloted an experimental 6th grade and 7th grade course, not a 7th grade Chinese 7, but it was exploratory. It was a semester course. And while we didn't stick with those exploratory courses, it gave us the material to do the Taste of Chinese. So actually, it was an experiment, we learned from it, and now we have 8 full courses that we're running, and our staff is growing. On the top is Jacqueline Elfson. She's one of our technology staff integration specialists who works with the Mandarin Chinese teachers who are in the top picture. We also have a library of Chinese books. The librarian is available 5 days a week from 9 to 3, so students or parents can email her or call her. We'll mail the books to the home or to the school. They get mailed back to us, and we have a pretty significant collection. We have Diary of the Wimpy Kid in Chinese, we have cookbooks, poetry books, travel books. If you need help studying, we have tapes you can borrow. We have all kinds of materials. In the middle, we use all kinds of paper because we feel like students need to use the computers to write Chinese. They need to write by hand, but also to write it big and in different ways. So that's giant Chinese in the middle. And I'm not just an advocate of the program because I'm the director or because I believe in language learning. My own son is in the program. So there is Alexander. in the taste of Chinese, and we really think it's important for the students to dance, to use artifacts, so that is Chinese ribbon dancing. We looked at the survey that you sent out to your parents, and we thought one way to answer a lot of the questions would be to interview our students. So here are some quotes. And we did not let them see what each other were writing. These are all candid. We told them what we were doing and asked them if they could send us comments. And the real theme is kids like it. They like it because it's unique, that it's beautiful, you get to learn a lot, it's fun, it's challenging. And actually that is, in the corner, that is one of our newer monitors. And you can see kids with heads down, really writing, like right close to it, really getting close to the writing. So we have a lot of plans for the future. In the top corner is Ping Maroney. One of the things we've been working with is a lot more art and artifacts. So that's a giant Chinese character, a green Chinese character in our hand that we've been using them for instruction and artistic purposes. We're expanding our collaboration, not just with SUNY Orange, but SUNY Albany for some more Asian studies pieces to the program. We're going to collaborate with the Orange County Chinese School to offer Chinese competitions and other kinds of enrichment activities. We're working to think about other ways to support students to continue. So we've thought about if we could run an after-school Chinese telephone hotline, or if we could do that on Skype, and we're looking into those options. And we just want to reach out to more and more students. We've hung some of our artwork. We do a lot of staff development with our teachers, so that's staff development in the bottom, and we have a staff development room dedicated to the teaching of language and other activities. So we really have the broadcast room, the library, staff development. We really worked hard to give a total program. And the last piece here, we have time for your questions and we have some things to show you. But this is something we experimented with this fall. A lot of parents say to us, how do I help my child with Chinese? I don't speak Chinese, I don't know how to write Chinese, what shall I do? And that actually is a little bit of a hard question. So we asked them to structure time to ask the students to talk to, tell me what you're working on. Can I see your work? Even if you don't know it, the student can narrate for you. And the other thing we decided to do was a Friday night dinner. So because our students are coming from so many different districts and so far away, we stayed late on a Friday night. We served dinner at 6 and we stayed till quite late. And you can see the monitor in the picture on the right. So we used monitors to show them how we use monitors. We gave parents a chance to learn to write Chinese and feel what it feels like to use pens and pencils and brushes. And we invited students to come with their parents and their siblings so that it could be a whole family affair and discussion about what this language is like. And it was really exciting. So both Chen and Han Yinding were there. Do you want to comment on the family event and the dinner?
I still remember that that night I just taught all the teachers, all the parents and the students to use Chinese brush pen, so for the calligraphy. So everybody had fun.
It's just very nice for the kids to be experts and share their knowledge with their parents. And I think if you look through the pictures, everybody was smiling. So it was just very nice. We really believe in distance learning. We believe it gives access across the region, but there's nothing like having a moment or a few hours to get to know each other in person. So we're really working to build both sides of the program. And we have textbooks to show you and student work we'd like to pass around. We do need them back, so we'll pass them around and you can pass them to your neighbor, and then we'd be happy to take any questions, or if you'd like us to talk more about anything specific, we'd be happy to do that as well. So we'll just take a minute while you collect your thoughts and get materials out to you. Oh, okay.
Also, if I can get your permission, I can share some of my students' work.
Thank you.
So the materials that are coming around to you now are the textbooks and workbooks we're using, as well as samples of student work. And as well, we pulled some books from the library shelves so you could see what kinds of books circulate through the library. And as part of the program, we cover the cost for all the textbooks, the workbooks, it's a total program, everything's included.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
You said 8 districts, 8 classes. How many students total?
So it varies year to year. I think we have just over 200 this year.
Out of 8 classes?
It's 8 courses, not 8 classes.
Okay, so how many classes?
How many sections? I don't know off the top of my head. I could go back to the office and email that to you.
I have just a question about how it goes, the interpersonal relationship between students and their teachers. I think has value. Do the students meet the teachers in person before the actual instruction starts? And how many personal interactions are there, in-person interactions are there between the students and their teachers throughout the course in the year?
So when the model was developed, all of it was video conferencing. There were few, if any, meetings except for, say, parent-teacher conferences. So adding things like the Chinese New Year or the parent night or open house is something we've added. I think you would be surprised, and we would certainly invite you to come out to our center and see live classes going on if you wanted, but we have a strong history of classes running all through the video conferencing, and the teacher and the student have never met live. And that's part of what's really exciting about the Checkpoint C event, because sometimes kids are really, it really becomes almost like an incredible experience to come in and meet the teacher live. So it's a very different structure. It has worked really well. Our students get really strong scores on their quarterly reports and the state assessments, but also our students are going on to use their skills in the military, in colleges. So it's unusual, I know. I was a long-time kindergarten teacher, so when I heard about this initially, I thought this is really different. But it is actually very successful, and actually for some kids it's almost more comfortable because it's in some ways very predictable, and it is a different kind of communication repertoire at some level.
And just, I just want to understand, different doesn't scare me at all.
Mm-hmm.
But at our end, in our classroom, if we have 16 kids sitting in a class, what is there a teacher aide in our classroom?
Yes.
Is that how it goes? There's one
Teacher assistant is
okay,
probably
teacher
what we'll have.
assistant. Okay.
So there's always an adult. The students are never in a room by themselves. There's always an adult physically in the room, and the district can make a decision about who that staff member is. Most districts use a school aide or a TA. We think that works the best. There are some districts that use a teacher who's not in a class in that period. We find that actually more difficult because our teacher really needs to be the teacher and run the class. And sometimes it's really hard when there's 2 teachers.
And what would that teacher assistant's responsibilities be?
Each teacher has a slightly different style, just like you would in a regular live class if a TA is working with a teacher. So the teacher's demand or request of the TA or aide might vary, but typically in the beginning, the teachers, and I'll turn it over to the teachers in a moment, the teachers will have sort of a side conversation as the TA is starting, we've had TAs that have called, and we've had a telephone conference, this is what it's like, and talk to them about it before it starts. But in many ways, it runs very similarly to if you had an aide or a TA in a regular class. So, when I was a classroom teacher, I might say to the aide as she came in, today we're doing a project. Can you make sure that everybody has, glue sticks and colored pencils?
It's very similar
Very
to
similar
a regular
structure.
class.
Or I might say, today, I would say, on Friday we're going to have a quiz. When kids come in, can you help me get the class settled quickly because we need to start right away so students have enough time. So it becomes much more similar to a live class than you would expect in terms of the management.
How does that conversation work?
Through the video conferencing.
So that's like during class time that's happening, not an email or a phone call before to talk to TAs
It
in
can.
the
It
classroom?
depends on how the district wants to set it up. So we have some districts that have asked us to come and do summer training for TAs or aides, and we can do that. Some districts that becomes a stumbling block for a range of reasons, from contractual to financial. Most of our TAs and our Chinese teaching staff become good friends, and they're constantly back and forth on email or, talking between the classes, so the conversation becomes pretty rich. And it's exciting to be a part of the Chinese program. We've had TAs and aides that learn Chinese, so usually they ask if they can come back. So it's not a revolving door. Some districts will change it up every year, but a lot of the TAs, I even know who they are and would recognize them in the supermarket at this point. Chen and Hanying, do you want to comment on classroom management, TAs?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we always appreciate hard work from TA because we work like a team player. For instance, currently I'm also teaching Chester School District. So this is what the TA going to do. So academically, she's going to check her homework. So you may ask, how could she check her homework? She even doesn't speak Chinese well, or she doesn't speak Chinese. But well, she's going to check the page number with the nice textbook, workbook. So for instance, they work on workbook, page number 17, part D. So the TA, Mrs. So will say, did this student finish, complete on this page, this part? No, she will mark. She will definitely record it. So that's academically, she will help me to check the homework. Okay, so what I'm going to do with homework though, we either go over with the homework during the class time, or I can print out the answer key, send it to TA. Either I can scan, or I can mail to her, depends what's her preference. So academically, she's such a big helper. So such a great team player. And due to class management, she is over there. So our rule is, to be fair, the kids need to rotate their seat because this is not a traditional classroom. So of course, she takes the first row right in the middle. It's so easy for her to see the screen. What about the people or students sitting on the side? Of course, they can see screen well, but maybe on the side, she said, I want to move to the front. Sure. So TA will rotate every 4 weeks. And also also make sure they pay attention on my instruction. For instance, if someone said, Mrs. So might go to ladies' room. So this person will whisper to the TA. So TA said, sure, go ahead, and then give this student a pass. So I think TA plays a huge role for this program. We always so appreciate it. Every time Dr. Lan always say thank you, we say thank you to school district, all those TAs, because we just love them. Without the name, we probably couldn't make so far, but we love it.
Is there,
that's my...
is there work submitted electronically from the, you said sometimes you would scan
Yes.
and email and answer key. How does it go the other, what
Okay.
is there communication the other way from the students' work to you, and how does that work?
Sure. So Dr. Lan set up a nice schedule for mail order, for the mail system. So Dr. Lan well-designed date for each school district. So for instance, every Thursday, so the mail we will receive, the students' work, whatever from that school district, we will receive. Also, whatever the quiz, test we already graded, or students' work, we will send out on Thursday. And also Dr. Lan scheduled, let's say, chapter every day. So each school district, we have a mailing system. That's one thing we have to just send out. But most likely right now, for instance, my personal experience, all my TAs, they are regular certified teacher. They are very handy. They get used to scan the document, then email to me. So far, the mailing system, we don't really use that much for two of my major schools. I guess because it depends on TA's preference. If for her personal preference, I want to just get it done, scan and send it to you, which is great. I never able to, never delayed any test score for progress report, for grades, for quarter grades. So, but I think Dr. Lan designed that we call it inter-campus mail system, work out so well ever since 1929, right? 2009. 2009. We never miss one quiz, one test. So again, two different ways, but again, depends on TA's personal preference.
So that's a serious hire.
Yes. Yeah.
As far as the teaching assistant would be a real,
Well, we have
strong teaching assistant.
We now have teaching assistants, and our teaching assistants, some of them have certification, almost all of them have a significant amount of college and could handle this work, because this is basically assistant work. It's scanning and sending.
May I add something? It's not necessary has to be TA for
Sometimes they
sub.
use
For instance,
we would
for
use an assistant.
TA stage 3, TA level 2, not necessary have that strong background. For instance, we have a school TA, it's a lunch monitor. We have school TA as a bus monitor.
Yes.
What do they do is, it's easy, very easy job, right? They can just collect the work, for instance, homework, all those tasks. They can put it into the mail, like use Dr. Lan's inter-campus mail. So the date, whatever that date for that school, so our someone from our side will come to school to pick up. Then we can get it right away on time.
So what I would say about the issue of the aid is it's super flexible, and there are a huge range of possibilities, whatever the district is comfortable with. This year, we were fortunate enough to free up one of the teachers to be a program facilitator. So one of our districts that's new is Pine Plains. And so I was able to send Judy out to Pine Plains for some chunks of time just to get everybody on board, make sure the systems were in place, and for somebody with a lot of experience in our program to mentor someone new. And we would include that if you came on board, that it might be Judy, it might be a different staff member, but we can be very flexible, and we've been successful with a very wide range of people serving in that role. And it really just needs to be someone organized and somebody with an open mind. And that's all that is required.
You want to get in, Guy?
No, I just want to support what the young ladies are saying. I've been involved in district learning over the last 12 years. And unlike them, I would always have a school in Europe, and I've had a school in Asia, plus where I was. The TA is an integral part of my team, and I talk to them, and obviously I could not meet with two of them. But we did talk beforehand. We have a live thing, we talk. They can, talk to me after if there's problem. It's a key person And I don't have the problem with Mandarin, but I'm doing statistics. But I do distant learning at the high school level, and I've done it internationally, and it does work very well. And not only do I have, am I lecturing them, I get to see what's going on in the classroom too, with those little windows. And the TA can actually be sending me notes. Could you go over this again? It wasn't clear, or something, you know, I have students that have questions. So it is an interactive thing, but you are lecturing, and it's, the TA is a critical person.
And you, I get back to the numbers. You said there are 8 courses, 8 districts. How many are high school and how many are middle school? Or how many A classes?
So I haven't really thought about it that way, which is why I'm pausing. Most districts that come in have made a commitment to run a full secondary program from 7th grade to high school. The only school district that I can think of that's participating that only has one level is Walk Hill, and that's because Walk Hill started a different way. So they're in their 2nd year, and they're offering it as an elective in high school with plans to go down to 7th grade, but they decided to start at the top and see how it went, and then we will be proceeding with them back down to 7th grade. Most districts start with 6th or 7th grade and work their way up. So I haven't really thought of, it's pretty even though.
I have some just very logistic questions, and I think you answered them. I just want to clarify. This does meet all the Regents' requirements for a foreign language.
That's correct.
And so for our students, it would be one of their foreign language choices. So it would be instead of Spanish or French. That's for us.
At the middle school, it would be instead of Spanish.
Right.
When they get to the high school, they could take the second language.
They could take both of them. Okay. And I had another question, but I don't have it in my head. Anybody? Oh, yes, one other. It's through the CoSer system.
That's
so
correct.
it's a BOCE service.
BOCE service, yeah.
So the cost is as if it's another one of the BOCE services.
Yes.
that we use.
As part of you mentioned, and I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but you mentioned in the CoSer list of things that become part of the program, the Latin piece, I don't know, it was like number 2 on there, so I don't know if that was an accident or not, because I'm a big proponent of needing Latin into our programs. So how are other districts using that tool through you?
Right, so you want me to talk about the other languages? Address those?
Yeah,
okay.
please.
So right now, the only language that we cover with live distance learning, the video conferencing, is Chinese. We have the capacity to cover a range of other languages through completely online courses. We have a couple languages we can accommodate all the languages that we produce through courses that are really designed for high school students. There are a couple languages that we have some unique materials that are really targeting middle schoolers. So for example, Latin, we have the sort of more traditional approach in an online format. And then recently we've been able to access almost like a gamified version of Latin. And I actually tried it myself earlier this fall just to see what it was like. And I don't have a background in Latin. And it was actually really fun. And I had an opportunity to try it with a few students who were working with me. And so we have some unique options for the middle schoolers and those more gamified versions actually meet New York State standards. So we have a New York State teacher of record, and those courses are completely aligned to the New York State standards for language learning. So other options for other languages are opening up at this point for us.
And that could almost be an encore for us in the middle school.
But it's still self-directed because it's not live.
Yes, it's self-directed.
It's self-directed, but I would say I can send you a demo if you want to see it. It is very engaging. It's like a video. It's not like a video. It's almost like an online game. So there's like an avatar teacher comes on and talks to you, and then does text-based speech, and then it sets targets with you, and you can self-set targets, and then as you complete and show mastery, it opens up other windows, and you get points and badges. So for especially students that are interested in video gaming, it feels like that. It has that kind of feel. So we're particularly interested in it for middle school because the more traditional courses, unless you're very self-directed, could be a little dry. But these new gamified versions seem very engaging to youngsters.
Well, and our goal for Latin would really be to help in the acquisition of English and other
Right.
languages, so that would really be a good way to do it. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? And our next steps, Dr. Wills, is you would?
Well, we have the survey, and we have, so we have a parent cohort interested, and what we'd like to do, I'll be talking to Diane about setting up an evening meeting with parents who are interested, and maybe doing something like your Taste of Chinese in a mini way with students and parents.
Okay.
Something like that. Mr. McCarty is here from the middle school, and we were talking about setting something up like that.
Okay, that would be terrific. Thank you so much for having us. If you think of any other questions, in the program guide, our names and our emails and our telephone numbers are there, and we'd be happy to talk to you more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can you send the district that presentation?
Yes, I can.
That'd be great.
Yes, I will.
If you've not already.
Because we post this on our website. We'd like to post it on our website. So, Maureen, can you save it? Thanks.
Okay. So,
What do we do?
So from the excitement of programming and education to how we pay for it, we're going to be moving into budgets. And we're starting
Yes,
one
we're
school at a
starting
time.
with, with the elementary
which is
school.
nice, so.
Budget presentation.
I'm sure Margaret will make it very exciting.
And Margaret.
Margaret will make it engaging and it's exciting and dynamic. And I'm so confident that I'm into the ladies' room.
Hello, Margaret Podesta, principal of the elementary school. I'm here to talk about the budget for next year and what we're looking at Putnam Valley Elementary. We'll start with just something to share with you. Many of our classrooms studied closely the works of Martin Luther King and the message that he gave us. And I think it's a great time in our country to really have our children take a look at many historical figures in our country and what they've done for us. This is a fourth grade art piece that's hanging in the wall in the elementary school, and it's a courage quilt. I also had a first grade teacher tell me that it was the first time he had really taken multiple days to teach about Dr. Martin Luther King, and he had children cheering and fist bumping when he heard that, you know, people of minority had been given certain rights. So it's really a nice message and goes along with our Character Ed committee that works so hard in our school. And just before I start the fun stuff, this is the really good stuff. This is Makerspace Work by second grade. Ms. Keene and Mrs. Romanello have worked hard with our nature theme that's throughout our building. And these projects are landforms that focus on concepts of nature and in their curriculum. And they worked in the makerspace where we have so many exciting projects going on, and they are displaying these projects in our main hallway in the building. So if you are in the building, take a look. You'll see a nature symbol, which I'll show you soon, where different displays are put up, and you can see that teachers and classes have tied in much of their learning with what we already do with the study of nature. All right, so we have goals for our current year that you've heard me talk about before, but I'd just like to review what they are. A major focus on literacy throughout our district, and particularly at our elementary school. Continued student progress, of course, in all academic areas, always trying to do better and learn more, reading and writing, math, science, and social studies. Appropriate support for all students according to very specific learning needs. And I was talking with the administrators today. I think we take great pride in meeting the needs of individual students. We sometimes design programs around one or two students just to make sure they're getting what they need, either it's social, emotional, academic, and behavioral. Very rich curriculum planning. You know that our teachers worked hard over the summer with each other and also with professional development leaders within our own staff, planning their curriculum maps, looking at the resources available to them, and using new resources, which we've adopted over the past few years, to update our curriculum and help our students. Support of our Character Ed and Diversity program. We have, of course, the Tree of Great Expectations. We have the Kids of Character Club, which is run by Mrs. Soprano after school, and all that, the impact that it has throughout our building. Further development with our makerspace, which I encourage everyone to visit, especially when it's filled with children, and of course, technology. And then, of course, we have the school-wide nature theme of focus. We have the outdoor classroom, which is ready for spring, ready for use, and just an overall awareness of nature around us and how it connects to our curriculum. The Next Gen Science standards have been adopted by the state, and in our district, we have had kindergarten and first grade teachers work over the summer at BOCES to write this curriculum with teachers from other districts. So last year, kindergarten piloted the program. Now first grade is piloting it. The teachers are very excited about this new curriculum, which Science 21 is gradually adopting and modifying their work with, and that's what the teachers have been so busy with. It focuses on discovery, critical thinking, real-world science. And the collaboration with other districts helps us grow, of course. So that is going to continue through the grade levels. And here it is. Here's the nature symbol. So in the elementary school, you may see a bulletin board with writing, drawing. You may see a table full of projects. And teachers just put up that little card to show that it connects to our nature theme, and it brings us all together. And there we have some children in the maker space. Just this week, building bridges according to specific requirements. We have Mrs. Bruno and Miss Bross, who runs they run the Maker Club together. And actually there was a waiting list, and so we have one session of children in the club now and another session coming in a few weeks. You'll be invited actually to the Maker Club celebration. I think it's February 8th, right after school, where students want to show their work. Okay, so here we get to some numbers. Looking at last year's enrollment compared to this year's enrollment, something very interesting happened. You can see that kindergarten one year to the next might be, minus 16. We added 21 first graders if you compare first grade to first grade, and you can see the differences, but look what happens at the bottom. The number is exactly the same, 581. There was zero change in our total enrollment just by chance. And I was talking to Ms. Silver. I said, go back and check that. We forgot to change the number at the bottom. And she said, oh, no, it's accurate. So you can see right now that our big class is in 4th grade, where we do have 5 sections, and I know that's being looked at by the district. We had a good number of 4th graders, a good number of students in each class, and what happened was the 4th graders kept coming. So we have 2 teaching assistants who are helping our 4th grade classes because they are at about 26, approximately 26 in each class, which is large for 4th grade. Our 1st grade, with 125 students, we have 6 sections, and I'm anticipating that that will easily move into 6 sections of 2nd grade next year. So here are our current class sizes. Kindergarten, 18 and mostly 19 in each class. Grade 1 is where you have the 6 sections, 21 about in every class. Grade 2, it's about 21, 22 with 5 sections. Grade 3, 22, 23. We've had a few 3rd graders join us this year, but that's where the numbers are now. And grade 4 is our big group there, with one class even having 27, just based on student needs. Another one has 25. Then we have the 2 self-contained classrooms. In the K2 classroom, we have 8 students enrolled, and in the 3-4, we have 6 students enrolled. So looking at next year, this is what our building would look like. I don't know much about kindergarten yet. It's a guess right now, but registration is open, and I continue to put in the Weekly Word and in other public announcements, just if you know anyone who has a child turning 5 by December 1st, please call our school. We'll set up a registration appointment in early March. But all being what it has been. There will be 5 sections with, I'm guessing, about 18 students in each, but the other grade levels are not as much of a guess. Grade 1, 5 sections with about 19 in each. Grade 2, 6 sections with about 21 students in each. So that's a big class for us right now. Grade 3, 5 sections, about 21 in each, and grade 4, 5 sections with about 22 in each. So no change in the number of actual classrooms that we have, as long as the kindergartners keep signing up. And we have some upcoming staff changes. 3 elementary classroom teachers have announced their retirement. 1 special education teacher will be retiring. 1 speech teacher will retire. And then I said the 6 sections of grade 1 will move to grade 2. So those are our major changes in the building. And if we look at our total staffing for the elementary school, we have the administrators, we have the classroom teachers, 5 in every grade level except 6 in first grade with a special ed teacher in the collaborative classroom. We have 2 additional special ed teachers, well actually 4. We have the New Horizons program, the Achieve program teachers, so 4 total. We have a math AIS teacher, we have 2 reading AIS teachers, we have 1 full-time ENL teacher, which is working out very well this year. We have 2 psychologists, we have 2.49 speech, we have I believe it's 0.43 behaviorist, 1 nurse, and of course I'll talk about the specialists, but that's the gym, art, music, technology. Also over on the right, you'll see that for the first time we have an ELA coordinator, Cheryl Kahn. She works with both the elementary and the middle school, and the math instructional specialist, which is what Mick Coleman does beyond being a math AIS teacher. So these 2 people are providing really important services to us right now. They are holding professional development sessions, analyzing test data for the standardized tests. They're doing demo lessons in classrooms. They are taking what they've learned from the data, looking at our assessments that we are giving in our classrooms, and looking at how we can better meet the needs of students. Cheryl has met with grades 3 and 4 teachers to talk about common question stems and talk about answering short response and essay questions, and it's been very beneficial already. We've had Mick meeting with grade levels after school for in-service to look at assessments and how we can weave in some more rigor in our assessments and also make them more in line with the standards and what we're getting ready for our students' success. And then just providing sample questions and tasks and tips and strategies. So these 2 people are serving a really important purpose for us right now, and it's helping our students. Okay, no change anticipated with our specialists. This is a little confusing because we really have 0.8 specials, physical education, but we have 2 phys ed teachers, 2 gym classes at one time, and one of the phys ed teachers travels, so Mrs. Orajema comes over from the middle school in the morning. So we have a total of 1.8. We have 0.8 in art, and then the rest of that teacher's day is 0.2 AIS because she happens to be a general ed teacher as well. We have 0.8 in technology, and we have 0.8 in music, with the rest of the music teacher's day being occupied and really part of the band. So important to all of us. And here's a look at the new technology room. If you haven't seen it yet, there used to be rows of big tables, which are now in a faculty lounge, and this is just much more student-friendly. The children are on laptops instead of desktops that were getting old and not working as well, and just the kids can move around more, the teacher can get to each group, and there's a lot more group work, so that's working out really nicely. So our continued goals and visions for the school, we had a very successful kinder camp for the first time, thanks to your approval, and we'd love to do that again in August. Last year we did it for 4 half days, and so we can take a look at what the plan would be for this year. We also have the Maker Club after school. We also have the Kids of Character Club, which really, they impact what we do in our cafeteria and our recycling, and it's just a terrific club. We are going to be taking part in our K-12 environmental curriculum work. We hope to have a garden club and just continue with that theme. We have the outdoor natures classroom, which we could even have a ribbon cutting ceremony with that. It is really something special, and we weren't able to use it in the fall just because by the time it was really ready, it was getting cold, but it's waiting for us. We want to continue our technology integration in our curriculum. The teachers have been working with with Jen Kronk, who's been helping them with the Google Classrooms, but now she was pushing into classrooms today to help students get on board with it. So that was exciting, especially in 4th grade today. And of course, the continued goal of improved student performance in all academic areas. We are working all the time, always trying to learn, find our best resources, and stretch our students. And there we have students in the makerspace again, building another bridge, but with different materials, because the materials were their choice. And I just wanted to share the resources that I really want to make sure that I always budget for. We have the Eureka math curriculum, which is completely in line with the standards, and children have a very deep understanding of number sense. We're looking at iReady, especially in math, for grades 3 and 4, to give us data on what the students know and what they can do. We use the READY program, which is the READY workbooks in both ELA and math, and the READY book in ELA has proven to be very beneficial to our students. We are focusing on decoding and the foundations materials. That's a K-3 program in our school, and for the first time we are collecting benchmark data quarterly from teachers so we know if we're missing any gaps with students who might be good at comprehending, but they might be missing some decoding skills. So we want to make sure we're on top of all that data. We have the Smarty Ants, which is the online reading program, which was introduced to K-2 this year, and even some 3rd graders. It's being very well received, and this is an online program which gives teachers a lot of information about strengths and weaknesses in a child's reading. The Science 21 materials we order, Jeanette Mistretta really takes care of that ordering and the drop-off for all the units. And then, of course, the Current Events magazine, which keeps our children in touch with their real world. And one of those is Time for Kids. You may have seen that one. And just to finish up, this is our Character Ed Committee, focusing on diversity. Can you identify the flags of the countries that represent the diversity in our own PVES family? And so this is a big bulletin board in the main hallway, and there they are. We have all of these flags represented by the children in our school, and we welcome everyone, of course. So take a look at that if you're visiting too. And that's our budget. Any questions?
Great way to end. That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah.
I have 2 questions. Kinder Camp, I know it's going to be hard to have any data, but the feeling of how those kids that went through Kinder Camp, how they're prepared and progressing now as opposed to what was anticipated if they didn't go through.
I think the major difference was the first couple of weeks of school where we didn't have criers. We had the children who we had identified not only with their understanding of concepts and colors and transitions, but also what was observed in them with play and in separation from their parents at the kindergarten screening. So they had those first school days, which were short, very small classes, and we didn't have major transition problems at the beginning of the year. Not that we always do, but these children could have been identified for that reason. So they had a smooth start, a confident start. They knew what school looked like and felt like. And we really used our kindergarten screening data to identify those students for one reason or another.
I remember thinking after the feedback that I wonder if there's ways to even expand that, because it sounded wonderful, just sounded wonderful.
Well, we would be open to talking about that. I know Dorothy France had said, I wonder if I could have an ENL component of that in the summer, and that was just an idea that was shared quickly. We could expand on the time. We could have more groups. I know I had parents say, oh, I would have sent my child, because not everybody could be invited, you know, so we could have a morning session, an afternoon session. We could talk about all those possibilities. As you remember, not many families took advantage of the busing, so maybe that wouldn't be considered a big expense with the program.
Do you anticipate a demand for the ENL kinder camp? Or do you
I would
see
think
it?
we would have a need for it, based on just who's coming into our school. You know, I don't know about this incoming class,
Okay.
but I know that our numbers of ENL students have grown significantly since I've been there.
I would imagine that they would gain a huge benefit from it.
Yes, and sometimes you just need that time to find out if it truly is an ENL student. Sometimes I'll go to kindergarten teachers on day 3 and ask if they need to be screened, and they're not sure yet because the child's not doing that much talking and there's some confusion on the home language questionnaire. That can be tricky.
I'm not remembering clearly, is Achieve 3000 being used in the elementary school?
Yes, it is.
Because it wasn't one of those.
No, and that's
okay.
because I didn't want to say for sure that it was being ordered for next year. We're looking at it, but it is being used. It's being used for about 2 40-minute sessions a week in grades 3 and 4 for the children who are not still doing the Smarty Ants program, and we do receive the data from that.
All right, so it's really, in terms of budget, there's nothing new.
No.
It's a carryover.
Not too many
of-
changes, no.
Just
Yeah.
enhancements. Great, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
PTA.
Do we have anybody from the PTA or PTSA that would like to give a report? Okay, we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
So today, we had actually a visit from the our high school, and Mrs. Figuerella, myself, Jeannie Janike, and some high school teachers went to see, and the high school assistant principal, went to Nyack High School to take a look at their common lunch, because it's one of the pieces of the schedule, of a schedule sort of design that we're looking at for our high school for next year. And we learned quite a bit about what could be done, and we saw some wonderful interrelationships there in the school based on the fact that students were eating all together, not all together in the same space, but throughout the school. And that students had this downtime that was very positive. We saw them in a sort of a relaxed mode. They had their little spot that they wanted to, where they wanted to go, you know, in the school, somewhere in the music room, somewhere in certain corridors. They had their lunches with somewhere in the gym, and there was a basketball. They were doing like sort of impromptu basketball, which they do every day apparently. And it was very well kept. The students were conscious of how they were eating and how neat they were in the school. There was a really good feeling of, you know, this was their time. This lunch was, it was more of an adult model of the way we like to find a place to eat and have that time. So some of them actually were with teachers because the way their schedule operates, there is time that can be used by the teachers. Although it is a teacher's lunchtime, sometimes teachers choose to have their lunch at another period of their day when they can do that and use that time at the student lunch to meet with students, to actually work on extra help and other things. So we were very impressed, and we also saw how a schedule that is more flexible can actually affect the culture of the school in many ways. So, did you want to say something, Jill, about?
No, I could say that I was totally impressed by the program. I thought that it was, I don't know what I was expecting when I got there, so it was good that we went. And I mean, as far as the students go, I thought that it was very well planned out. I mean, there's always a transition period, which we also spoke about, and the administration had a really nice welcoming committee for us, and they had groups from different, they had a couple of teachers, they had a couple of administrators that really went through what it took to get them to change over to the new program, and how it was a benefit for them. This is their 5th year in the program, and they are just, the people that were a little bit on the other side of not wanting to do it early on, they explained that they would never, the students and the faculty would never go back to what they had before if they were given that choice. So, I mean, that was impressive. And also the way that they served lunch. They had different stations throughout they didn't have them really like throughout the entire building. They were more or less in the area of the cafeteria, but they were just set up like
There was a deli
pizza
area.
station, there was a deli area, there was a salad area, there was the regular school lunch area where they served the standard school lunch so that they could still participate in the National School Lunch Program, because that's a big, that would have been a big change for us if that's something we were looking at, is moving away from, and I really didn't want to do that. So we wouldn't have to do that. So I was impressed by the fact that they could pull it off, and they had a lot of good hints for us, and I think it was well received by all of the people that attended from our school.
Was there anything about the physical layout of their school that's unique and different than ours that would make it more
Not
difficult
really.
or
They
easier
had
for us
their
to do?
gymnasium was just next to their cafeteria, so they went from their from their lunch lines like into the gym. They used their bleachers as sitting areas in some cases. You know, there were certain groups of kids that sat in bleachers, and they would go down. In this case, they would go downstairs. We have the lounge. It's just different, but
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine.
yeah, no, and I think you can make it work. Yeah, I know he's not liking it.
Well, there were certain things that were pointed out. First of all, they have 1,000 students.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big difference because of the numbers, but I think you could make it work on a smaller scale.
But one point that was made that was interesting, the custodial staff only cleans then, really does the sweep once a day. They don't do it, in our situation, we have a 5-time. I mean, I'm sure it requires more manpower.
They've gotten it to a point where it's so perfected, like within 20 minutes of the lunch being over, everything away, and everything
was
has been
looking
picked
clean
up. The kids
and good.
do all their own picking up. They don't have, because if they don't follow the rules and they don't do what they're supposed to do, then they would isolate them, and then they would get the gist of it after a while.
For them, it was working very well.
Have we taken the step here to kind of envision the physical space utilization here?
A little bit. We've been talking about it this week, so
Yeah.
really not, don't have anything concrete yet, but we have some
But
ideas.
going there was
We have
our
some
first
ideas.
step in
It's got to work with the schedule, so right now I think the schedule is
And
the biggest part of this.
We don't know whether the schedule would have one lunch or two, and the kinds of things that the staff here is working on. So, but it is.
How many do we have now?
5.
5, okay.
5, and it's a very different way of looking at
It's really
how
mostly
you run a school.
brunch.
Yeah.
Oh, here, yeah, it starts at 9.
Start at
Brunch
9:30.
here.
So the way the way they've arranged it, and I think the way we're looking at it here is, how do you turn that into something that's more congenial for people and maintaining the rest of the day as really an academic, different academic possibilities, if you will, whether it's the regular size period or a longer period, some rotation.
Right, the way that it was set up, they really created more academic possibilities for students, even aside from the fact that they were doing this new lunch thing. It was really to create more academic time for the students.
And just to speak a little bit, that happens to be the district that I work in the middle school, though I did not broker this visit. They want to come and see our one-to-one laptop program. So Dr. Wills kind of said, what can you show us? But there was tremendous resistance to this schedule, both how can you rotate, kids can't figure out what they have classes now, how can they remember to change, and even largely, how can you have 900 to 1,000 kids eat in one place and maintain a cleanliness. They have a principal that runs an extremely tight and nurturing ship. So the understanding is, you want to sit in the cafeteria, you make a mess. You want to be able to go over the building, you don't. And I work with a guidance counselor that went there saying this is going to be awful, and he now is in the middle school and said they can't imagine never doing it this way. Most teachers don't take their lunch at that time. They use their prep, and they'll work with kids. They've moved many of their clubs, so coaches who also wanted to run clubs can do both. there isn't anybody who isn't a fan in the school, and that's not easy to say.
So it really was, it's always good to see how other people are doing things differently. I think the whole notion of doing things differently is always difficult for us. Change is difficult for us. And so our discussions, as you know, the later start discussions have been, complex. And we've, but I keep going back to something.
This notion of this.
The schedule?
Well,
Oh,
this would happen if you
Regardless.
decided to do it regardless of the
Regardless
time.
of the later start. What
It doesn't-
happened was
right.
really the
But
discussion.
this opened the
Yeah,
discussion
the,
for
the
that.
later start opened the discussion, and that happens sometimes. And then that's how we started talking about different ways that
Well,
we
things
could.
like block schedule have come up
Yeah.
periodically for years.
Right. But there seems to be a lot of energy for it. The teachers and Ms. Intrieri work well on these things together, and that's what's happening with it. I feel that in this report, I have to talk about the later start. It's not on our agenda, but it's something that a decision has to be made on sooner than later. I mean, we have to move from this at some time in the near future, I would say, because people are concerned, they want to know. So in thinking about this topic, I go back and I think perhaps this is an opportunity for some discussion, because I go back to when we started looking at this, feeling a little tentative about change myself, and then realizing after doing a lot of the research and what could happen, feeling very strongly that this is the right thing to do. The later start is right. It's the right thing to do. The issues around it make it complicated. Yes, there would be some additional financial investment to do this, and however, that financial investment would not be impacting our tax rate. We're staying within the tax cap. As I had mentioned at a variety of meetings, we have, we have retirements, we have some areas in the budget which we could move into transportation. It would be, the increase would be of around 240, maybe 200,000 with the net savings from fuel. Certainly sustainability, because we only have 2 trips versus 3 in terms of the gas. But I think hearing from the community, we heard in a lot of our messages, there was concern about it. The students expressed concern and so on with the change. We can't get around the fact that it's the right thing to do for social, for the students in terms of the biological need, their social need, the sleep that they need, and their developmental place. We know that the science, the research is there. So really, it's a dilemma, and I think it's important to share the thoughts that we have on it, and
Can you open it up
finally
then for us to
make
talk
it.
about?
That's what I
Right,
think.
okay, great.
I'm hoping to do that now.
So I just to segue out of NIAC for a minute, I just received an email about in the last 2-3 weeks ago that NIAC is also for next year putting together a committee to look at a later start time for the high school, and they start at 7:25 right now. 7:25 or 7:30? 7:30. So they're viewing that 7:30 is too early in terms of the literature, and when I say that we started at 7:05, I get various from that's criminal to how many kids are actually in your first period classes and all sorts of questions like that. So
Well, I don't think there's any dispute as to it being a good idea for our students, right? I mean, the literature is there, the studies. It isn't, 15 years of living in Roaring Brook with sending kids on the bus, we're the earliest up there. So, that's not, I have no dispute of that, but I wish that the committees had been tasked with the puzzle of doing this without an increased cost, because that's it's not an insignificant number, this $240,000, because, and it's not a one-time cost, it's a cost that's going to be incurred every year we do this. And I try to look at it from 100 different angles, but the opportunity cost of, if we could truly afford an extra $240,000 in our budget and not increase the tax burden on our taxpayers, then is there other uses for that money that would be even more impactful on our students than the later start time? So that's we could, it would be 3 FTEs we could add, approximately, which would reduce class sizes. And I just, that's one way I'm looking at it. So I'm not, it would be a no-brainer. I mean, there's a lot of difficulty with the schedule, and it's upsetting, and the students don't want it. But I would be willing to absorb all of that if it was a zero cost in the budget. And so I'm very concerned about adding that number to our budget every year, and limiting other possibilities, like the Mandarin program that we just saw, and like other things. I would hate to not be able to pursue other things in the next several years because we added this cost that's not in front of students. It's a cost that is, and just I'll stop in a minute, but it's very difficult for us. It will be impossible for us to measure a positive impact of this that we could show the public and say, okay, well, we did this, and here's what happened to our students. It's going to be a very subjective nature to how to measure that, and basically impossible.
Well, other than the 5,000 first
Other
period
than
absences.
perceptions. I think
Maybe that, right.
You could do the latenesses, and you could do
Right.
the absences to
Right.
first period, and you could do the perceptions.
Yeah.
Which
However,
also is
along those lines, I see that we're moving toward quite possibly a different scheduling for the high school, where there might be some rotation of when you have various subjects during the day. I don't know, there's a lot of investigation going on about that discussion, and so where somebody might not have first period as such and such class every single day, and it might allow, I don't know, there's not a definitive decision yet about those things, I don't think, about the schedule for next year and block scheduling, et cetera, and the movement of it, and there still remains to me somewhat a lot of questions that haven't been, let's say, definitively answered, that some changes are going to produce some more questions as far as the new scheduling, and when we just talked about this lunch thought, the movement of the lunch, freeing up extra time for academics and things, and so there are still questions out there, and I'll say, with the questions that I see out there, it's noteworthy to me. You can never make a decision or have a change where people all jump up and down and say, yeah, we're all in on this. I understand that. But it's really been noteworthy to me how many negative opinions I've heard from every front on this. That's been noteworthy to me, and I can't ignore that. There's been negative opinions from people about budget. There's been student input that there's been several negative things from there. Some questions from parents still about things that were undecided. There are just many facets that I don't feel have been settled about this that still concern me. I just have to say that. It just concerns me still.
And jumping on both of your conversations, I think that makes us a great board, David, because I'd be willing to deal with my hesitations are not about the cost. We spend $125,000 a month on busing right now. So $240,000 is a lot of money. It's 2 months, about 15% of the overall budget. Had we had this in place from 15 years ago when the high school opened, nobody would even notice that we had these extra, those other 240,000. And I do believe having someone that I work in two different time buildings, 610 versus 640 is a completely different animal in the wintertime. And I believe that it is as valuable as Mandarin for 35 students or as their class sizes as our enrollment continues to get small. This is a good time. So and that's all how I could justify the cost, just like you can justify some of the others. My concerns are more and it piggybacks on what you're saying, Ralph, the unclearness of how some of the student concerns are. Our students use that, what comes out to almost an hour, from 1:50 to 2:50. They use that time for clubs, for homework help, for extra things.
They hold that time dear.
They hold that time.
And they go out to get lunch because they eat at 9 o'clock in the morning.
A lot of them
They go out to get
definitely
food.
go out to get lunch. We could certainly bring in food. But right. So I think there's ways to address their concerns, but they're not trusting that yet because they know what they have now, and they like what they have now. And I understand that, but you can't discount 5,000 latenesses or absences to first period over a 3-year period.
I wouldn't want to give up on it. I
Right.
would want to identify the real impediments to
Right.
moving later and see if we can attack those. And I know that there's one impediment that is impossible to fix, and that's the geographic nature of our school district being, it's a 20-minute drive for me to get home here. So, right, and I get that. And then there's the sports, the section 1. I think that impediment can be worked on, and there's contractual agreements, with the teachers unions that can be worked on. I don't want to throw our hands up in the air. I'm not saying that and give up on it, because I do believe it would be valuable for us. I just think that, again, to go back, I wish that we had looked at the puzzle without and came up with a solution that didn't incur such a big increase.
I mean, I think that the fiscal piece is the hardest one to say that we could overcome. I don't think we can. I mean, because of the numbers that we're talking about. I mean, we did have someone come in and work with us.
There were
We
several
just need
different
4
options.
buses more to make this happen. All of the other logistical issues, we have answers, but to say that there wouldn't be some things that would crop up, no. And the fact is that when you try something new like this, when you do that, you do have to address the problems that come up. You have to adapt, you have to find solutions. And we had a good talk, actually, in the listening hour, and we had some comments about that a lot of this could be issues that come up can be overcome. What we can't overcome is the additional time the students have, that getting out at 1:50 is different than getting out at 2:30.
2:40.
It would be 2:30, I think, that we would get out. Or 2:25. I think it was 2:25 that we would get out. That's not there. That time is the time that students would be sleeping in the morning. And that doesn't mean that we wouldn't have clubs. It doesn't mean that, because these other schools get out at 2:30 and they have clubs. And these other schools have athletics. So they're all doing that, and we would do it we would find ways to do it. Those are not pieces. I think there's no question it could be done. And
Just moving from 3 bus runs to 2 bus runs causes a need for an extra 4 buses.
It does.
Which is the money. I mean,
And
that's very simple.
That's the point. And that's a decision that, you're talking about impacting 600 students. So the $240,000 is impacting 600 students. Now, some of the students, the students I've talked to are adamant they don't want the change. They like things the way they are. However, in many cases, students who are silent about it are the ones who are having the hardest time getting to school and, getting on those buses. And they're riding the middle school buses. So that issue of people saying that, well, the high school students will be on with middle school students, that's happening now. They're coming to second period
On
on the middle school
bus,
buses,
which exists.
and they're leaving school on those middle school buses, going home. So that's happening now. So I don't see that as an obstacle. I see what you're saying. The one piece that I don't have a way to solve the problem of the fiscal addition. There would be it's about $20,000 a month difference.
The way to
That's what it
solve
is.
the way to solve it would be figuring out a way to maintain 3 bus runs and working within that construct. And if we can't, you're going to incur the other cost. And that's
Well, there were a lot of
And-
different models that consultant came up with, and this seemed to be.
But running the 3 bus runs up against the elementary school, which
starts.
ends at
Timing
3:30
didn't work.
now, which is late. So, I could never recommend having an elementary school end at 4 o'clock. Those kids would be getting home in
That's
the dark.
correct.
So, and of course, the contract says 3:30. I think that's very reasonable. That's as far as the late. So, one of the ideas we had, which is looking at as a pilot, and either piloting it for a year or piloting it for 6 months next year. So, one possibility, and I'm thinking out of the box here, and people will scoff at it, but
Take a risk.
sometimes, in this day and age, one has to be a little daring in that way. We have the logistics worked out. So you could do this, let's say, starting next year, that's February 1st, 2018. You would have a pilot for 6 months of this process. And people could have this, the feeling of what it means to change the time they come to school, to see how, that they could sleep. You're talking about a 40-minute difference. You're talking about a whole period difference. And to have a way to see what it would like. It would be less of a fiscal investment for next year. And, if it was decided that it was a good idea, you would have the money in the budget to add the other $120,000 the following year. The issue, by the way, of having teachers and saying that there's 3 FTEs, right now, I think we're going to have a, sufficient funding to meet our needs in terms of numbers of teachers for the needs we have and numbers in classes where we feel that there are excessive numbers. One thing about when you do hire teachers, you're saying not just this year, but every year that amount increases significantly over a long period of time.
And that will go up, whereas the buses will eventually go down because of class.
The buses will eventually
We'll have
go
less-
down because
less
the numbers
population
will
will
go
actually probably end up losing a bus in 5 to 8
But
years.
I'm just throwing
But
these
it
ideas.
could be 2 FTEs.
Yeah, I'm putting these ideas out there because I think, going back to the original concept, none of us can deny the science behind it and the biology behind it and the word I use is well-being of students, which perhaps students disagree themselves with it. Sure. But as, in our roles, we sort of can look at things a little differently and say, you know what, I'd like to see my child sleep a little longer, take, with the phone that's keeping them up until midnight, maybe this would do something for them. They'd be able to get to school feeling a little more ready. And we know that their whole attention span changes after 1 or 2 periods. They do change. And they're more attentive and alert, and their brain is working. We know about that. So
And we have heard from those parents.
That's there.
They've come to the forum, and
Yes.
they've talked about that. A couple of parents of seniors said that they feel their son's grade or daughter's grades have improved because they didn't have to go to first period because they made the way their schedule worked out. And suddenly courses that were hard for them are easier because they're more awake. And those are anecdotal. That's not statistic. But so it hasn't been all no, I disagree, from the parents. But it's change and it's a dilemma.
Well, it's kind of been 50-50 for everybody except for the students.
Right.
You know, as far as the surveys, it's been 50-50 except for the students who were probably like 66 against or more.
I'd say 80-20
But
right
when you
now.
actually sit down with a lot of students, they don't have all the information.
Right.
Because when you start talking to them, they want the continuous start because they're scared they're going to lose the clubs. They're going to lose this time when they do their homework.
But if they don't lose it.
Right.
And we
And
can map it
that's
out.
why your suggestion about possibly February of 2018, we have something laid out and we put it in place where it clearly says that we're only doing it for those 5 months. And we're going to see what happens. We're going to measure things, do some extra things. We'll monitor it carefully to see what happens. So what we have to do now is just to move this forward. So we have to, over this next 3 to 4 months, start planning this in detail and making sure everybody has all the facts. Not just up.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of piloting at the second half of next year. The idea being that the high school, in some form, is going to have a different schedule. They'll have the 4 months of the first semester to get used to a new schedule. And then you'll actually be able to do an A/B test. How is attendance first period, first half of the year versus second half of the year? You can see, then you do anecdotal things. The idea of the money, the expense, again, I go back to what Janine said. If we had been 2 runs the entire time, it would, in 2 years, it'll just be the expense. It wouldn't be an additional expense.
But it won't be the most cost-effective way to transport
in
our
theory,
kids.
In theory, but depending upon, it's going to be hard to measure a performance or have a standard to measure what that did for us. But it is no different than the millions of dollars, and I'm not trying to put a negative spin on the positive, the millions of dollars over the course of the lifetime of our one-to-one laptop program. We don't have any data that says that our laptop program actually improves learning. We have anecdotal data of engagement, but we don't see, we can't direct a line from.
I agree. I don't think
we
we should even look for data because it's going to be a fool's errand. I really
and the only data we can get is attendance and
data.
anecdotal data on awareness in there. And again, not coming at the beginning of the year and having an additional time to educate what we would be doing specifically. It doesn't get lost over the summer. And odds are the first week that we implement it, we'll have snow days. It'll mess everything up because it'll be in February. But we should be able to iron out the kinks prior to that February break week because we have a couple weeks in. I think that is a measured way to get in there. I think also it's important. I don't know who would go, but in April next April, or this April, whenever it is, there will be the conference. There's a late start sleep conference that's in April in Washington D.C. that we get more data from attending that. I think that's be a good resource.
Yeah, and I think more education to the public as the value it's got to be there too. When Ralph talked about there's no clamoring out there for this, it's like, oh, this is exciting. We're going to get to sleep in an extra. The feedback I'm hearing is really $240,000 for a half hour. Come on. But if we can articulate that benefit better after seeing this conference and more, I think maybe we failed in explaining the value, maybe, because the feedback I'm hearing is that we didn't. That they don't see the value. Let them go to bed a half hour early, which we know that the science of the mind and all that doesn't support that.
So we have to figure out communication pieces that are different because I think we've gone to the town, we've gone to, we've had the TV show, the video, but these are not, and the board meetings, but these are not what people watch. They watch other things. We put it on Facebook. I know all of this went on our own Facebook page. Jeannie does that.
But it's only what we've talked about and what we've already done. It still doesn't have the detail of how this club is going to work, how that club is going to work. And we won't be able to know that until we know what the schedule will be in the first half.
Exactly.
And how they're going to interact with if they're going to put clubs in the middle of the day or not. And all that stuff with connection with middle school activities before school, that all needs to be very clearly mapped out rather than saying there is a solution. Say, this is exactly how we envision it
And
going.
we've talked
and
about
then put that forward. That's going to be the
early
important
period of
piece.
zero.
Those are the details that I think people really
Yes.
want to
Right,
know.
need to
How
know.
is this going to affect
Right.
this
The
club,
devil really
that
would be in the
club,
details.
Things. They really want to know a little bit clearer about those things.
And I had come here saying I don't think we'd be ready for September, and I think I'm hearing across the board that we're now looking at a September start for an early or late time. I was going to suggest wait a year and put the new schedule in place, but I think we can have some conversation about doing a 6-month, or if it would be 5-month, or whatever it would be.
So ultimately, it's like 4 months and 2
Right.
weeks because the high school stops having real classes.
But
in
it's
the second
February
weekend.
1st, was what we talked about, the second
Whenever the
semester.
semester begins.
And there's a new schedule coming. There has to be some input around this new high
Right,
school
and how's it
schedule
working, right.
where the details of that are
Yes.
all ironed
Right.
out.
Mhm.
And then you can talk about the next, I mean, that's the real hub, the schedule of the high school,
A lot
the
of the
actual education
student
that's going
concerns are
on.
about that,
You know,
exactly.
that's the
Take
real
that schedule
hub.
and shift it 25, or a half hour later?
Yeah,
Is that
the
what you did?
schedule is not.
And if we're addressing first period in multiple ways, it's just a doubling of the benefit. You know, it's not, oh, we can address it all here, but if we can address it in scheduling and then just arrival time, then there's, a doubling effect for students, I think, or could be possible.
I think we've had a couple of forums attached to board meetings. We've had a couple of forums on
I've had-
different nights. We've had,
But very few people.
But I think we all,
show
would-
up.
they're not always as well attended as we would like, and probably the attendance has been about 50-50 in terms of positive, who's for it, who's negative. A few people like aligning our schedule with the middle school, because you can do more shared services. But I have to say that from when the committee ended and we had the first presentation until now, we haven't even locked in exactly when. We talked about at one of the forums that it would be a 7:50, exactly the same time. Now we're saying 7:30. I think
No.
we have to,
No, we're saying 40 minutes. 7:50. We're saying a 40-minute change from what
Okay,
we have
fine.
now. It's a full
well, we
period.
charged down at 7:05.
period.
Oh, 7:10, okay. And then what time would we end? 40 minutes.
2:30.
But I've heard a lot of different times thrown out there. And I think people have walked away from forums with a lot of different times. I have to keep going back to my
A lot of people kept saying you're
notes.
going to spend that money for 20 minutes, and it's
Right.
not 20 minutes.
No.
It's
So-
a full period.
I think,
Well, this is good, because we're going to get a newsletter out. It would really be nice for us if we get this newsletter out, which we're trying to get different ways. We're sending the newsletter out in different ways. If we had a sense that we had the 40 minutes and we were going to do the pilot, I think that would be very powerful, very positive way of communicating and presenting it.
I mean, this is a laboratory of learning. We're experimenting, right? I mean, we don't know everything. We're experimenting with what things might work.
We
bring
know
in
the
new pieces of
logistics.
curriculum.
We know how to get them from here
We
to
bring in
there.
new technology. We don't know how any of that stuff's really going to work on the ground. Happens to be one of those things.
And we haven't fully explored our budget. We're in the process.
just starting.
Dr. Wills brought some areas of initiatives that we definitely think are important for the budget. Today, we just heard from the elementary school, and it looks like there's a zero impact. Just contractual costs, but no new costs. We have to hear what happens in terms of the middle and high school with that, and weigh out what our priorities are. Weigh out what can we not live without next year. To your David, what FTEs? We keep hearing. I can't wait for the middle school. Is poor Mr. McCarty's still back there?
No.
I keep hearing about the 35 Spanish classes, in the social studies class. And I know that one of our long presentations today was an
Again,
attempt to address
it's problem solving and not
Mhm.
necessarily doing the same thing over and over
Right.
that you've done.
Exactly.
But looking for new solutions, new opportunities. That's what we're trying to do.
In terms of a final decision in a process, I have a couple questions, but Mr. Cohen, I'm going to address my first one to you. How does this work logistically from a Robert's Rule thing? I mean, is it a vote? Is it a proposal? Is it consensus?
Well, it's just part of the
Is it a
budget.
contract?
and
It's right.
It's really just part of the
It's
budget.
not even a budget.
And our contract does
We're not
not
adding.
say times, it just says hours, or it does say times? Because if our contracts
You mean
say
the teacher's
time, teacher's
contract?
contracts.
Adding an
It's just
increased
the exit.
transportation cost in the budget
It's
that we
just
all
the
vote on.
exit.
So we would
time.
need a memorandum of
You
agreement.
would be voting
No,
on.
it wouldn't change any of
No.
that. It wouldn't change the contract at all.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't
Oh, you mean
impact-
how much after the kids get out?
It's the 3:30 issue for a close time of the elementary school. Other than that,
This doesn't impact.
it doesn't impact the
I
contract
have
at
a
all.
7-hour.
Okay.
But it does, when people vote on the budget, they know that we're going to have in this
amount of money.
this cost of,
So I think what I hear we've accomplished tonight is nobody feels we're ready to start in September, but we want to put in the new schedule in September. So that's one thing we didn't have 25 minutes ago, and that makes me do a little bit of a happy dance. I also think we didn't have it on the agenda formally because we knew it was going to be part of the superintendent's report, and Jill and Dr. Wills may scoff or feel violent thoughts towards me, but I'm thinking that we actually place it on the agenda, even on a
Yes.
short, for the next board meeting.
oh, that's what we were thinking.
Okay,
We
good.
said we would
Right.
have it on that
Good,
night.
okay,
That
okay.
we would make the decision the first meeting in February. That
Okay,
was our
good.
last.
So we would have it on the agenda, kind of do some of this discussion could be up on the, Jean's going to get a newsletter out, we'll do some communicating, specific times, what we're thinking, piloting, when the pilot would start, and then really encourage, and my message is now for the students, encourage participation at that next board meeting. Let's have a good dialogue so we feel we have communicated and people have the facts.
And if
Because-
they have questions, go seek out answers rather
Even
than
before
just,
then.
change is hard and, or I don't want to change.
Right.
And that's an important thing. Seek out answers from people that have some.
And I do want to say, though, that just from speaking to Dr. Wills and speaking to some myself, the students who have approached Dr. Wills and myself have been extremely articulate and convincing
Yes.
in their convictions and in their reasons why the way things work now are very effective for them. So I want to thank them for that and not discount them.
And I support that. I understand that.
And can I just have one more thing to think about, that we can all think about? I'm not, that I mentioned at a previous board meeting and got shot down very quickly.
Sorry
But,
about that.
no, not by you. But if we could figure out a way, I know middle school kids do come in early for programs prior to school. And if high school, if we could work on ways to have kids come in early, then maybe we can get enough of them to come in on the early bus run to reduce the number of buses on the second one. And maybe that could be a goal, because we don't know how it's going to work out, but maybe if you try this pilot, you could also try it with that in mind and say, okay, well, let's think about programs before school that would attract students, that maybe they would take, maybe it would work out, where all this consternation about 4 extra buses was silly because we only needed 1, because a lot of kids would come in early for other things, because they do in the middle school already.
You know what? I think that is one of those out of the box kind of, but if you had another run,
That's an extra
That
run.
would-
That's an extra run.
that's
But
cost too.
You just said an extra run, no.
I know.
Maybe
But
not.
that's the idea, because 3 runs cost us a lot less than 2 runs by 4 buses. So that's what I.
So what you're saying, would
mean,
that be additional?
We're
if
already
we
going to
had-
bring kids in early, right? As part of this?
No, we're not bringing the only kids that are
We were
coming
going to
in are
have,
the
we're gonna have-
BOCES and
we
the
were going to
parochial
have,
children.
no, we were going to have possibility of 2 or 3 buses around the district that would come,
Right.
do
you
a loop.
still have 3 bus runs.
It'd be like an
but one of
afternoon
them is
bus
just
run.
a mini one.
You know, like how the afternoon bus runs
Yeah,
run,
like-
they'd run them in the morning instead
Yes.
for pickups.
And it would be like a
But
zero.
maybe we could try to push
Like a
more
zero
people into
period.
that.
The only thing you
and
can't
need
do
more
is
there.
count on the fact that when a club gets canceled for the next day, all those kids are going to be coming in on that on that bus.
Right.
That you can't count for when
I just-
cancellations happen, and that happens a lot if you get the middle school newsletter like I do every day.
But maybe
Morning
there's some,
things
maybe there's,
get canceled
and
all the
I
time.
don't have the answer.
Well, I know.
Maybe there's a creative solution
Right.
that would be able to maintain. I just want to eliminate a few buses on that second bus run so we don't spend all this money on it. I'd love to still hold that out there as a possibility and not just say,
Well, I
okay,
think
this is how
also
it's
we
gonna be.
would, if we do it as a pilot, we would get a sense for how many kids are using these buses.
Yes.
So
Right,
we
what is going
have
on.
that time.
Okay.
Maybe if we were to continue in September, we'd really know how many buses we need, because we will have in testing what's the morning population like, what's the afternoon population like, how many additional buses do we need in preschool, pre-time school, and then post-school, how many buses do we need for each of those. We'll know that based on what we do in that pilot, and if we need to make an adjustment, we can make that adjustment
But
for
a
September.
goal to prepare for that pilot
Sure.
should be to try to incentivize in some way more kids to come in early and see what happens. Because maybe that second bus run, isn't, maybe we don't need the 4 extra buses. I am very stubborn. I know there's a solution there that doesn't cost us an extra $240,000, and I want to find it. So,
The issue, I think we would have to ask Mr. Bellino to look at that with Mike Koenig, because the issue is you have runs that are set up to do this. In other words,
I
the
know
routes.
it's not.
The
Believe me, I
routes.
saw the presentations on the routes and all that, and it's not an easy deal.
puzzle.
I know this is not an easy solution. If it was, I would have presented it here.
But I
think it can
it's
be
one of the look at the details and see if we can minimize the
Because the way I'd see it would
the
be.
negative impact.
You'd have clubs, maybe, a club runs once a week. They would come in on those days that they had a club. You would want the kids to get their extra sleep, so I'm thinking, well, if clubs usually run once a week, so maybe a student had 2 clubs.
But we're talking about the middle, that's talking about the middle school, because they don't have any morning
No, but
activities
they
for high
might,
school.
the teachers might want to do that, run their clubs.
That's what
Because
Dave's
it's
saying.
going to be harder to run the clubs in the afternoon.
It's a variable we don't know. but
That
I
was
just would
something
say-
I thought
Right.
of, but it's hard to figure it out.
I know.
And the schedule will impact that if they do clubs middle of the day,
you have to
depending
go
on what
into
they do with
detail.
the schedule.
So
So
why
that's
don't,
why I'm saying,
So why don't
to
we
look
take-
at it with
yeah.
that in mind, and I just wanted us to all think about that, and maybe someone will come up with something brilliant.
well, and we have 2 weeks for brilliance to be born, and
Well, we have more
are you
time than
laughing
that
at me?
because it's only a matter of us, the only thing we have to do is adopt a budget, and that's in April.
Right.
We're just a matter of what goes in the budget, what doesn't go in the budget, and so, I mean, we have some time in there, because there's no action we're gonna take here until we adopt the budget that we put up for the public. That's our
We have
decision.
more time than 2 weeks to figure this out.
Right, that's
Right.
Especially if we say we're not going to start in September.
right, and that was really
That's
where
the main point,
I was
because
gonna
we
say,
have to-
that's where the urgency was, that we needed more
We
than
need to know
than a semester
gonna
to be
start in
putting words in. All right, so we have a long agenda, some of you are going to get very long reading, I saw.
No.
No,
So,
not really.
a
Do you have any
couple.
others? Wait, Dr. Wills,
But Dr.
anything else
Wills,
to talk
we were in
about?
the middle of your
I was
report.
going to, I think a lot of it was mentioned. I just wanted to mention again the band concert, the Zydeco band stuff they did. It was so remarkable. And, James Capozito tap danced through it, and it was just spectacular. And the choral concert as well, which was, that Hamilton piece was just inspiring. So there's a lot of wonderful stuff going on in the school that we have to remember. That's what we're here for. And I just a comment on the anonymous alerts that we've started, that it is, it's interesting how there was a flurry of activity in the beginning. It's slowed down, but there are some very big issues that came up that have been dealt with. So.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to public contribution on
Agenda
any,
items.
on agenda items, thank you. Okay, so moving right along to new business.
It is on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to amend the effective date approved at the work session business meeting of January 5th, 2017 for the additional .1 teaching assignment in chemistry at the high school for Amy Lee Ludovici from January 6th, 2017 to January 3rd, 2017.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 2.
Whereas the Board of Education of the Putnam Valley Central School District is contemplating entering into an energy performance contract to install various energy conservation measures and equipment at the district's school buildings and facilities, including ancillary costs, the proposed project, and whereas the Board of Education wishes to comply with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, from here on referred to as SECRA, and whereas the Board of Education has reviewed the proposed project with respect to the Type 2 criteria set forth in the SECRA regulations at 6 NYC-RR Part 617.5, and has determined that the proposed action is a Type 2 action pursuant to Section 617.5 C1, 2, and/or 8 of the SECRA regulations. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Putnam Valley Central School District hereby declares itself as lead agency under SECRA for the proposed project and determines that the implementation of the proposed energy performance project at the district school buildings and facilities is a Type 2 action pursuant to Section 617.5 C1, 2, and/or 8 of the SECRA regulations, representing maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes to an existing structure or facility, replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building or fire codes, and/or routine activities of educational institutions that will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and no further review of the proposed action is required.
Second.
Questions or comments? And that's obviously related to our presentation this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the comprehensive energy audit report containing proposed energy conservation measures dated January 6, 2017, prepared by Consolidated Edison Solutions, Inc., Con Ed Solutions, and be it further resolved that the Board hereby approves the energy performance contract with Con Ed Solutions for the performance of services in connection with the district's energy performance project, including the installation and maintenance of energy systems in the district's buildings to improve the energy efficiency of the district's buildings, to be financed from the guaranteed energy savings to be realized as a result of such improvements, as presented to the Board at this meeting. A copy of such energy performance contract shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting as document number 151/17.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number 4.
Whereas pursuant to the requirements of the Educational Law Section 3012-C and Part 30-2.9 of the Rules of the Board of Regents, the individual named below has completed all necessary training to be recertified as a lead evaluator of building principles. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recertifies that the following individual is a lead evaluator of building principles: Dr. Francis Wills.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number 5.
Be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, that the Board appoints the following persons to 4-year probationary terms as teaching assistants commencing on January 23rd, 2017 and terminating on January 23rd, 2021 in the teaching assistant tenure area at the annual compensation listed from the CSEA teacher assistant salary schedule for new employees, prorated in accordance with PVCSD policy 9250. Oh boy, names. Conchetta Naja, Step 11, $32,800. Fanny Mondelli, Step 11, $32,800. Lynn Sharp, Step 11, $32,800. Kathleen Marsico, Step 11, $32,800. Sharon Redmond, Step 11, $32,800. Karen Geyer, Step 11, $32,800. Cynthia Plesha, Step 11, $32,800. Leslie Goldfein, Step 11, $32,800. Melissa Keeler, Step 11, $32,800. Maya Citron, Step 1, $26,000. Dawn Federico, Step 5, $29,400. Diane Mazzarisi, Step 1, $26,000. Maria Roman, Step 1, $26,000. Elizabeth Mello, Step 1, $26,000. The above persons all hold teaching assistant certifications.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I'd just like to, first of all, congratulate Kathy Marsico and Sharon Redmond, who are here tonight. But all of the these appointees have been members of our staff for many years, many of them for on Step 11 of their own teacher aide. They've been teacher aides in the district. And this year, the district moved to work to develop a teacher assistant unit in our contracts so that we could have our aides do the instructional work that they're capable of doing as support for our students. Because an aide is not permitted to actually do new instructional work. An assistant can instruct students under the guidance of a teacher who has prepared the lesson, but the teacher assistant can do the instruction from that lesson and work separately with the students, work in groups with the students. So really, this is a way to provide additional support for our students with well-qualified members of our staff. Many of these teacher assistants have college degrees. Some of them are certified teachers themselves, and they know our students. They have mastered the curriculum over the years, and I think this provides a whole other level of service, of support for the students in their classes. And so it was a complex negotiation, but one that I think we all feel very good about.
And we are one of very few districts prior to now that still
Yes.
had teachers' aides and did not
Almost
have
all
teacher
districts
assistants.
have teacher
So I am
assistants.
very glad we've made this step. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And congratulations. I guess we don't have to meet you because you've been here a little while. Okay, where was that, 6? Are we at 6?
Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Lori Anderson to a 6-month probationary appointment effective January 20th, 2017 through September 20th, 2017 as a campus monitor at the high school on Step 1 of the CSEA salary schedule.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7.
Resolved on recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the risk assessment update for fiscal year 2016-17 and recommended audit plan as per document number 160/17 attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8.
Resolved on the recommendation of superintendent of schools to appoint Teshwan Mandelo to a 6-month probationary appointment effective January 23rd, 2017 through September 23rd, 2017 as a part-time school nurse in the district on Step 1 prorated of the CSEA salary schedule, $172.07 per day.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Dr. Wills, can you just tell us a little bit more about the need for this
Yes, we
additional work?
actually had someone in that position who resigned, and so this is a replacement for that person. Right now, we are in a situation where we need to have someone at the ready when a nurse is out, and we have very few, if any, people on a substitute list. And what happens is then you have a substitute who really doesn't know the students. This person, this part-time nurse will be at different locations in the district. The elementary school, middle school, high school, get to know the routines, the students who need medication, this is really a way of providing for the security and safety of the students to have this part-time floating nurse.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda, number 1.
Resolved to approve the consent agenda items 2 through 6 as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
We'll be approving CSE, CPSE placements. We're approving an overnight trip for cheerleaders so they can participate in a competition. We're accepting generous donation of $1,000 for the Hope for Youth Foundation for the John Kleiniger Scholarship Fund and $600 from S&P Global Political Action Committee Charity Match Program at the direction of John, and I apologize, Pachuch, to be used in the district. We're approving sport team merges for next year, 2017-2018. With Mayapack for girls swimming, with Peekskill for boys and girls tennis, for Peekskill for boys and girls golf, for Garrison for modified wrestling, for Haldane for varsity wrestling, for Haldane for indoor track and field, for Lakeland for varsity modified ice hockey, for Lakeland girls gymnastics, Lakeland boys swimming, and we're amending the start date for the elementary school lunch monitor past last meeting, and the start date is now going to be January 10th and not January 9th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like at this point to open it up to public contribution on any items whatsoever.
I just have one thing.
Okay.
As we're approaching planning for next year, I think next year is the first year where the cohort of middle schoolers that did not take or have an opportunity to take algebra in middle school will be moving into the high school, and we're instituting their 3 and 2. I'd love to see an update on the plans and how that's going to happen, and what, if you're talking also about IB down the road, how that impacts delivery of math.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? All right, so at this point, I would like to resolve to convene an executive session for 8 matters of the employment history of 8 particular persons, after which time no further business will be conducted.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.